Chapter 12:35. However, the spear did not pierce his body. Instead, it broke when it came into contact with his body. The long-haired man was shocked. "Who are you?" However, Lin Yuan did not respond to him. He took the child's hand and walked toward the statue. "Kid, how about I take you to smash that statue?" He ignored the horrified eyes of the crowd, took the child's hand, and walked to the side of the statue. At first, the little boy was a little scared when he saw the little white snake in his hand. But at this moment, all the fear disappeared. Instead, he took the initiative to grab Lin Yuan's hand and walked to the side. He even picked up a stone on the ground. Lin Yuan smiled slightly. But the long-haired man raised his arm and shouted, "Guards of the god worship sect in the border, there is someone plotting a rebellion. Come out." At this moment, neat shouts resounded through the whole place. A pair of soldiers in bright armor had already rushed out with spears in their hands. They were originally in another direction, but when they heard the man's shout, they all rushed over. Lin Yuan did not move. He glanced at the statue of the god of night and snorted coldly. "Are you also from the god worship sect? It seems that this so-called god worship sect is real. They accept all kinds of shrimp soldiers and crab generals." After Lin Yuan finished speaking, the soldiers next to him shouted, "How dare you, unfilial son!" Then, they rushed directly toward him. The little boy was a little scared and wanted to dodge. Lin Yuan just smiled faintly. "Smash it!" The little boy glanced at Lin Yuan. He did not know where the courage came from, but he directly threw the stone in his hand at him. "Dong! How dare you provoke the gods? Do you know what kind of crime this is?" Lin Yuan did not even look at these soldiers. Instead, he gently put his hand on the statue. Then, the statue began to shatter. It turned into stones on the ground. Seeing this scene, Lin Yuan lowered his head and glanced at the little boy. "Look, you've avenged your parents with your own hands." After Lin Yuan finished his words, Kai Meng turned around and looked at the soldiers who were rushing towards him. Then, he coldly spat out a word, "Scram." This sentence instantly caused everyone present to retreat involuntarily. They were only mortals. He was no match for Lin Yuan at all. However, even though they were terrified and kept retreating, they didn't seem to want to give up just like that. "Good boy, you've inspired the people of the Church of God to destroy the statue of the God of Night in front of everyone. Today you will die without a doubt." Lin Yuan didn't say anything. He just took a step forward, and the others immediately scattered in all directions. Not only the soldiers, but even the people around them immediately turned around. Some of them even began to quietly retreat. The little boy raised his little face and asked Lin Yuan, "Big brother, why are they so afraid?" Lin Yuan chuckled softly. "Because they feel that they should be the ones enslaved, so they don't dare to resist." As soon as Lin Yuan said this, the little boy gently patted Lin Yuan's body. "Big brother, I don't feel that I should be the one enslaved." Lin Yuan smiled slightly. He looked at the child's slightly stubborn and strong face. She gently stroked his head. "Of course not. There are more courageous than them." However, what he didn't expect was that the little boy directly knelt down at this moment. "Big brother, please accept me and follow you." His face was extremely serious. At this moment, he seemed to have pinned all his hopes on Lin Yuan. At this time, the little snake began to spit out as if it was a warning. The little boy stepped back in fear. Lin Yuan gently shook his head. If the so-called god of night in front of him wasn't a member of the god worship sect, he definitely wouldn't have destroyed all of this. However, he clearly knew that he and the god worship sect had long been irreconcilable. So there was no need to leave the front. Moreover, it was the other party who spoke rudely first. Otherwise, he wouldn't have used such a method to deal with them. Sighing softly, Lin Yuan directly took a step forward. "Little brother, it's not that easy to pursue me. You have to make others suffer more." He didn't directly cut off the little boy's hope. He also knew that the little boy had no relatives now. So he didn't want to cut off the little boy's flame of hope. He must leave this place. He couldn't stay in Border City forever. Lin Yuan prepared to leave directly. However, he didn't expect the little boy to run directly in front of him and then grab the little snake wrapped around his wrist. Big brother, I'm not afraid. Take me with you. Look, I'm not afraid of the snake on your hand. Lin Yuan sighed in his heart. However, he immediately had a new idea. Why not just arrange for the little boy to stay here and let him directly become a god? As soon as this idea appeared in his mind, the little snake twisted its body. Little White, it seems that you agree with my idea. He was just finding an excuse for himself, and Little White didn't know anything at all. He didn't know what he was thinking. Little guy, if you really want to follow me, you have to be prepared. For example, you have to stand in the desert for a while now, until it's dark. Lin Yuan's condition could be said to be harsh. The temperature difference between day and night in the desert was already large. Now that the sun was already setting in the west, the temperature in this place would plummet in a while. Not to mention that the little boy was wearing thin clothes. Even if he wore thick clothes, he might not be able to resist the night chill. Moreover, desert wolves often appeared in this place. Although it was a remote and desolate place, the probability of demon beasts appearing in this place was also very high. Lin Yuan felt that he was simply courting death by doing so. However, the little boy nodded firmly. He ran directly into the desert outside. Lin Yuan always turned around and walked into the restaurant in the Earth City. He ordered some food and also some wine. Then he sat on the city wall and kept looking at the little boy. The little boy's stubbornness was very similar to his. That was why he had such a special idea. He wanted to directly take the little boy to his side. However, what he didn't expect was that the little guy's stubbornness was actually comparable to his. He even dared to directly run out in this situation. Lin Yuan sighed softly. He originally wanted to let the little boy know the difficulties in retreat, but now it seemed that it wouldn't work. Chapter 1236. Lin Yuan did not expect the little boy to be so obsessed with him. At this moment, he even seemed to have other thoughts, because he had already seen the little boy stand up. And at this moment, he looked directly at the specks of light in the desert. Lin Yuan frowned. He ate and drank while looking at the little boy. The little boy did not even have a weapon in his hand, and he actually went directly towards the specks of light. That should be the desert wolves. A wave of wolf howls spread in all directions. Under such circumstances, Lin Yuan could not help but want to go down and help. But immediately, he shook his head and stopped this thought in his heart, because he could see that at this moment, the little boy's body was actually emitting a special kind of light. Although it was still very weak, it was enough to make the little boy fearless of these desert wolves. Lin Yuan shook his head lightly. But suddenly, he realized that in the depths of the desert, there seemed to be something rushing over here. This discovery surprised him a little. It was an extremely powerful force. Even the demonic aura emitted from its body had reached the level of a demon king. In such a remote and barren place, there was actually a demon king? Lin Yuan looked in that direction with some surprise. As for the little snake on his wrist, it was little white. With its head held high, it hissed and spat out its string in that direction. Seeing that the little boy was already entangled with the desert wolves, Lin Yuan did not even look at him. Those desert wolves had already begun to roll over. But the light on the little boy's body directly protected him. Not only did he not suffer any harm, but he also seemed to have received some kind of blessing. Waves of powerful force directly bloomed from his body. At this moment, Lin Yuan raised his eyebrows slightly. He did not expect to meet such a talented person in this place. When he thought of this, Lin Yuan had already jumped down from the city wall. Although he was still holding the wine bottle in his hand, it did not affect the aura emitted from his body. At this moment, the pack of wolves immediately retreated. Seeing this scene, the little boy stood up with a grunt. "I can deal with them myself. I don't need your help." The little boy's tone was still stubborn. However, Lin Yuan did point at the depths of the desert. In the darkness, there seemed to be a monster with its mouth wide open. "If it's just a wild beast, I naturally won't help," but, before he could finish his words, a gust of wind blew over. Then, it engulfed every inch of this place. The yellow sand that filled the sky covered everyone's eyes. In fact, the sand was like a sharp knife, cutting open wounds on the little boy's body one after another. Seeing this, Lin Yuan took a step forward. A strong wind blew. It directly blocked the yellow sand that filled the sky. Then, a flag of the god worship sect emerged from the depths of the desert, shining with a strange light. One after another, they appeared in the desert like bamboo shoots after the rain. The little boy was stunned. "Big brother, these guys should be here to make trouble for us. After all, we destroyed the statue of the god of night before." After he finished speaking, Lin Yuan immediately sneered. He had long stopped caring about the statue of the god of night. It could be said that it was just a statue. Even if the god of night really came, he would not be afraid. Although this was a place of hesitation, these people were extremely believers of God. Lin Yuan could feel that the so-called Monster King was not very powerful. However, everything seemed to be accumulating a special aura. This aura was a threat. Lin Yuan shook his head gently. "Little brother, are you afraid?" The little boy shook his head firmly. Not only was he not afraid, but he was also a little excited. "I'm not afraid. I'm just a little curious. Although I don't know what kind of opponent is coming, I feel that as long as you're here, big brother, they won't dare to do anything at all." After saying this, Lin Yuan just shook his head lightly. "What if I can lend you some power to deal with these guys?" A big idea suddenly surged in Lin Yuan's heart. Although this method seemed very cruel, this was the time to test the little boy. As long as this little boy could hold on, Lin Yuan did not care about having such a personal disciple. After all, the opportunity had already arrived here. From this moment on, his thoughts had already changed. At this moment, all of his thoughts had already begun to be put into action. That was to accept this little boy as his personal disciple. He directly waved his hand gently, and then a ray of energy directly fell from his hand into the little boy's body. All kinds of special energy did not have any special abilities. It was just to let him be treated fairly with these monster kings. Lin Yuan's change of action stunned the little boy. Big brother, you're the real god, right? Why do I feel that my body is full of power at this moment? He could not believe everything in front of him. He even clenched his fist tightly. A ray of light rose from his fist. Seeing this change, Lin Yuan smiled faintly. This is just me temporarily lending it to you. If you can really defeat the Monster King, I can consider accepting you as my disciple. After saying this, the little boy's eyes burned with a raging fire. He already did not want to be like this anymore. I will definitely do it. I will definitely defeat that Monster King. As soon as he finished speaking, his figure had already rushed forward. Seeing that Lin Yuan did not move, the desert wolf took a step forward and then fiercely hit the little boy's chest. It rolled again, but this time, the little boy's hand was like a sharp claw, directly piercing through the desert wolf's chest and abdomen. Blood splattered. The little boy stood up and turned his gaze to another desert wolf. These desert wolves did not retreat. Instead, they directly rushed forward. Their movements were very fast, and they had already arrived in front of the little boy. The battle began at this moment. The little boy was bathed in blood, and Lin Yuan was indeed drinking at the side. Blood dyed the desert red, and it also attracted the attention of the people in the city. Everything seemed so natural, but it was also so unnatural, because at this moment, the little boy was like a fortress guarding the city gates. Lin Yuan had also discovered the other party's goal. They wanted to rush into the city. Chapter 12:37. Finally, the Demon King revealed himself. It was a desert wolf that looked rather large, but now he was completely in human form. He stood upright like a human. He even held a weapon in his hand. When he saw this scene, Lin Yuan only glanced sideways. The desert wolf Demon King growled at Lin Yuan. The little boy seemed to have been provoked by something. His figure was already moving faster and faster. It was as if he had long been able to withstand these special attacks. Furthermore, at this moment, all of his movements began to speed up. And at this moment, he could clearly feel that all of the rampaging demonic aura was converging toward the little boy's body. Lin Yuan's discovery made him feel that the little boy was strange. Perhaps he could really take him in as a disciple and let him become a god here. Lin Yuan had just gotten up that year, and the Desert Wolf Demon King had already fiercely stretched out its claws toward the little boy. This was not to say that he was at a disadvantage, but if it really happened, the little boy would not be able to block it at all. However, this claw did not land on the ground. Although the surrounding air shook, stirring up sand and dust that filled the sky. Lin Yuan discovered that although the little boy was not injured, on the contrary, he actually used his own hands to block the Desert Wolf Demon King's sharp claws. He gritted his teeth stubbornly. "It's just a Demon King. I won't submit." The little boy used all his strength and used both of his hands to block one of the Demon King's claws. Lin Yuan felt more and more that this kid had the potential to be the main character. Whether it was his resistance or the methods he used with this kind of power, it all meant that this kid was a one-in-a-million martial arts prodigy. Lin Yuan was even considering whether he should create some fantasy cultivation methods and give them to this kid. However, the Demon King did snort coldly. "A little human dares to stop me? You're courting death." After he finished roaring, his body suddenly expanded a lot, and he seemed to carry a special power. At this moment, both Lin Yuan and the little boy were surprised, because at this moment, the Demon King actually appeared in a three-headed and six-armed state. The two of them did not expect this at all. 6 strong arms kept squeezing the little boy's body. That Wolf King was still roaring, "Despicable person, you destroyed my idol. Today, I'm going to wash this place in blood. You lowly people should kneel in the ground and submit." Lin Yuan finally walked over slowly with a bottle of wine in his hand. He glanced at the Wolf King in front of him. "Who said that humans should submit?" After he finished speaking, the Wolf King turned around and let out a furious howl. It was as if his thoughts had been stirred under such circumstances. "That's what I'm saying. In such a big city, not a single person came to stop this king. Instead, they let a little boy fight here. Do you still dare to say that humans aren't despicable?" As soon as he finished speaking, the three heads spat out 3 balls of fire. He headed straight for Lin Yuan. Seeing this scene, Lin Yuan just sneered. "Little brother, I won't leave this suicidal thing to you today. The test will be carried out in the future. Today, I want to see how capable this guy is." After saying this, Lin Yuan directly threw the wine bottle in his hand. The wine bottle hit the Desert Wolf Demon King's body and instantly exploded. The wine bottle shattered. The high concentration wine inside swept through the Demon King's body at this moment. Not only that, his body also kept retreating. It was as if he could not withstand the pressure of the wine bottle at all. How is this possible? It's just a wine bottle. How can it be so powerful? His eyes were filled with disbelief. However, Lin Yuan did not give him a chance to regret. In fact, he had already sent out a palm strike. "Kneel down." As soon as he finished speaking, the Desert Wolf Demon King knelt on the ground, or more accurately, prostrated on the ground. Lin Yuan snorted coldly. "I thought you had become a Demon King, but I didn't expect you to only be a fake Demon King. How dare you call yourself a god?" The Desert Wolf Demon King was completely stunned. "Who are you? How can you see my level at a glance?" After saying this, he looked at Lin Yuan in disbelief. Lin Yuan did not say anything. Instead, he walked towards him step by step and took the little boy's hand. "Kill him. Just being a god is not enough to avenge you. As long as you kill the god of night, you can be considered to have truly avenged yourself." Lin Yuan's words immediately made the Desert Wolf Demon King's expression change. He had even transformed into his original form, a giant wolf that was 2 meters tall. "Awo!" A cry escaped from his mouth. At this moment, the so-called people of the Church of God, who had been waiting obediently at the back, all rushed over at this moment. Seeing this scene, Lin Yuan just sneered. In his opinion, these guys were not enough to be called his opponent. The little boy directly stood in front of Lin Yuan. "Big brother, let me deal with them." As soon as he finished speaking, he had already rushed out. At this moment, everyone could clearly see that the little boy had turned into a breeze and began to attract everyone's attention. Lin Yuan was also slightly surprised. He did not expect this little boy to be so talented. He had only lent him the energy for a while, and he could actually find the key to it, and use it. He watched as the little boy began to cut melons and vegetables to deal with those guys. Lin Yuan just smiled faintly and looked at the Desert Wolf Demon King. "Now do you know why we humans are so strong? You beast. Beast." He was not wrong. In the eyes of humans, wolves were just beasts. It was just that this guy was now wearing the mantle of a god. He claimed to be the god of night here. And then he earned incense. Lin Yuan wanted to kill this guy directly, but at this moment, the Desert Wolf Demon King was actually trying to escape. He turned around directly, as if he did not want to have any more dealings with Lin Yuan, so he chose to escape. However, how could Lin Yuan let him escape like this? He opened his mouth and a 7-colored light directly wrapped around the Desert Wolf Demon King's body. "No matter who you are, aren't you afraid of the revenge of the Church of God? I am from the Church of God. If you annoy us, there is no way out." Chapter 1238. Lin Yuan smiled faintly. "I've never thought of having a way out, because in my opinion, Trash like you are not worth it at all. He just said faintly. There was not a trace of hesitation in his tone. In the end, he directly reached out and grabbed the Desert Wolf Demon King's neck. But you can stay and be my little brother's sparring partner. After saying this, he directly threw the Demon King to the little boy. From today onwards, he will be your personal punching bag. The Desert Wolf King seemed to be unable to bear being a human punching bag at all. He wanted to struggle desperately. However, at this moment, Lin Yuan directly punched him in the face, causing him to involuntarily let out a series of wails. I told you not to play tricks with me. Be your punching bag obediently, and I might let you go. However, just as he finished speaking, the Desert Wolf King turned his head to look in another direction. However, the guys who followed him, except for those who were dealt with by the little boy, had all run away. Lin Yuan frowned slightly. Why didn't you all get rid of them? The little boy scratched his head. It's not that I can't, but that I can't catch up to them at all. After saying this, he was already squatting on the ground. The power that Lin Yuan had lent him had slowly been torn out of his body. Lin Yuan nodded slightly. However, at this moment, the people in the factory all ran out at this moment. They all looked at Lin Yuan and the little boy with horror. However, most of their gazes were filled with fear as they looked at the Desert Wolf Demon King lying on the ground. Although I don't know who you are, please don't bring this disaster to us. You can bear the anger of these monsters, but we can't. Among these people, some had already begun to criticize Lin Yuan. He suddenly turned his head. Originally, he thought that by standing up for the people in the city, even if the people in the city were not grateful to him, they would not criticize him like now. No one would be willing to be ordered around and enslaved by others. But now, he understood that these people were simply used to being ordered around by these so-called gods. He snorted and said, Well, since you're so willing to believe in gods, I'll arrange a god for you now. After saying that, he turned around and left. However, the people in the city thought that he was a madman. No one would believe what he had just said. Only the little boy believed that all his thoughts were on Lin Yuan. He trusted him unconditionally. After all, he had personally experienced how terrifying the man in front of him was. Lin Yuan shook his head. I still don't know your name, he asked the little boy in front of him. The little boy hesitated for a long time but did not say his name. I don't have a name. I only remember my parents calling me Bruiser before they died. When he said this, his body was constantly under pressure. He did not want to recall what had happened that day. Lin Yuan sighed softly and pointed at the little boy. From now on, I'll make you the god of this wasteland. But you have to be virtuous. Of course, he knew that if he casually arranged a god in this place, he was afraid that this matter would not be resolved so easily. Moreover, he could also feel that the matter at the summit was not over yet, because he had already sensed that after the Monster King was captured, something else was coming here. Or it could be said that this was the god worship sect behind the King of Medicine. But what he did not expect was that the people who came were not from the god worship sect, but a group of people who looked very special. Although their clothes were also tattered, there seemed to be some special changes in this matter. No matter what kind of weapon they held in their hands, their body was even more murderous. When the little boy saw them, he could not help but feel a little excited. These are the heroes of our city. They are the only ones who dare to fight against those gods and monsters. Oh? Lin Yuan frowned slightly. He did not expect that at this moment there would be such a reaction, and he did not expect that there would be such a group of unusual people in this place. At least compared to the people in the city, they could be considered the same kind. Seeing that these people were getting closer and closer, the little boy ran out excitedly. Uncle Moo, this big brother is like them. They don't believe in the gods here, and they don't believe in those monsters. Just now, he personally destroyed the Monster King. It's that desert wolf. After the little boy finished his words, The so-called heroes sighed in despair. We were wondering why there was a problem with the vast ancient road. It turns out that the god of night has been killed by you. Huh? Lin Yuan was a little surprised. He looked at the people in front of him and then asked, "What is the vast ancient road? What is the problem you are talking about?" The leader of the group stood out. He first pulled the little boy to his side and then lowered his voice. The voice said, "There are many monster kings hidden in the blue dragon bone knife. If we are not careful, we will die inside. We just want to find a way to kill these people, but we didn't expect that we would suffer such a heavy loss this time." After he finished speaking, he did not speak again. Lin Yuan was a little puzzled. What kind of place could it be that there were so many monster kings hiding? His thoughts began to move. However, he quickly calmed his mind down again, because he had already sensed the tremors in that direction. Lin Yuan raised his head slightly and narrowed his eyes. "Tai Dan, do you want to take a walk with me on this vast ancient road?" These words immediately caused these people to stop him. "No, you are going to die if you go like this. You won't have a chance to come back alive. The things inside are not something that a desert wolf monster king can compare to." Lin Yuan shook his head slightly and then looked at the crowd. Then he said slowly, "So what? It's just some demonic beast. It's just nice to find a companion for little Iron Egg." After saying this, Lin Yuan pulled little Tai Dan and left. He directly headed in the direction of the vast ancient road. According to these people, as long as they followed this road, they would reach the so-called vast ancient road. Chapter 1239. Lin Yuan's movements were neither fast nor slow. In just a short while, he brought the little boy, who was Tai Dan, to the vast ancient path. However, at this moment, the place was already filled with demonic qi. There were even some special demonic beasts patrolling outside the vast ancient path. It was as if they were inspecting their own territory. Lin Yuan just shook his head gently. To him, these guys in front of him were not very powerful. There were too many demonic beasts here. The Desert Wolf Demon King from before must have something special to be able to stand out among these demonic beasts. Just as he was thinking, a series of gongs and drums suddenly sounded. Then, demonic beasts were caught one after another. They were the synonym for violence and cruelty. Lin Yuan could even clearly see many human corpses hidden outside the vast ancient path. There were also many demonic beasts left here eating humans. Lin Yuan frowned. He didn't expect to see such a scene. Bruiser, who was beside him, just explained that these were the offerings sent by humans. They were for these demonic beasts. These were all sacrifices. Seeing this change, Lin Yuan's face turned cold. He did not expect there to be such existences in this place. Sure enough, the more backward a place was, the more these things would cause trouble. Usually we can't find any humans. Now that someone has taken the initiative to come to us, it's a good snack for us. The demonic beasts next to him began to talk nonsense. Lin Yuan ignored them. Instead, he pulled the little boy deeper into the vast ancient path. It was as if he could not cut these things. At this moment, a demonic beast finally jumped out. "How dare you, human? Is this a place where you can barge in?" Their voices became very clear and crisp. There was even a hint of threat in their voices. However, they did not rashly attack directly because they knew that the man in front of them must be quite capable if he dared to create the vast ancient path with a child. They had even heard that there were some extremely powerful cultivators in the human world. However, what they did not know was that the human in front of them could destroy them at any time. Not even a trace of them would be left. Lin Yuan gently turned his head. "Iron Egg, this place looks really filthy. Why don't you clean it up?" As soon as he finished speaking, the little boy immediately dashed towards the surroundings. He was as fast as lightning as he launched a series of attacks, eliminating all the demonic beasts in the surroundings. The blood had already flowed and covered the ground. The little boy didn't care about this. In fact, he didn't even feel guilty about killing these guys, because in his opinion, they were the main culprits who had harmed the human race. Lin Yuan nodded lightly. He had previously taught the little boy a special technique, the killing formula. It could let this little boy feel the realm in the midst of slaughter. Even this made him a step closer to becoming a god. Cultivating this kind of cultivation method, in addition to his various experiences, would definitely make him a killing god. Therefore, Lin Yuan did not hesitate and immediately let him take action. But this time, it was as though a hornet's nest had been poked open. One after another, demonic beasts began to emerge from the ancient path. Although they did not launch any attacks, they were eyeing them covetously from the side. Their appearance was already extremely terrifying. It was as though they were going to attack these guys. Seeing this scene, Lin Yuan sighed. I really didn't expect the things in this place to be so difficult to deal with. Moreover, there are so many of them. He suddenly turned his head to look at the little boy. Bruiser, do you want to get rid of these guys? Or rather, do you see anyone among these guys that you like? Since he was about to become a god, he needed to have more god positions under his command. Firstly, it was to strengthen his courage. Secondly, he needed to pay attention to some checks. Firstly, he had already agreed to let this little boy become his disciple. Seeing this scene, those who had hands felt offended. After all, it was unacceptable to be looked down upon by a human like this. Before they could do anything, someone immediately rushed over. It was the brave warriors who had been following them. They were not at ease with Lin Yuan and Bruiser coming to the ancient path alone. Don't anger these guys. If that happens, we won't be able to escape. These brave warriors directly blocked in front of the two. Although they saw the corpses in front of them, they did not expect it to be done by Bruiser. They did not even know why this happened. It's just that they put the target of suspicion on Lin Yuan. I think this young man must have some skills, but he is not necessarily very strong. Therefore, when they thought of this, they had already chased after them. They wanted to save the two of them. For them, it was very important to have an assistant who could fight against them. However, at this moment, Lin Yuan turned his head to look at them. If you let them become your guards, it should be considered good. After all, they are quite strong. Of course, this strength was relatively speaking. At least in this desolate place, their strength could be considered passable. Lin Yuan had seen all kinds of people, so at this moment, he did not hesitate at all. He directly said, "Are we willing to support Bruiser to become a god?" This sentence stunned everyone. They did not expect this young man in front of them to say such unfathomable words. In their opinion, this kid did not know how to write the word death. Otherwise, why would he have such an expression and action? However, at this moment, some special changes occurred in their mentality. So many humans actually sent themselves to our doorstep. It seems like we are in for a treat this time. The demonic beasts began to encircle these people, and at this moment, the faces of these brave warriors turned solemn. Oh no, if we are surrounded by these monsters, we won't have a chance to escape. Just as they finished speaking, suddenly, a huge monster walked over from not far away. It was the same type of monster. The huge ape's body was even surrounded by all kinds of lights. It seemed like it would not be easy to deal with. Lin Yuan raised his eyebrows slightly. It was a monster king. He did not expect that there would be some people with some strength in this place. However, this was not enough to make him feel strange. Lin Yuan narrowed his eyes. This ancient path was indeed a little mysterious. Chapter 1240. Lin Yuan narrowed his eyes. The vast ancient path was indeed a bit mysterious. He had only just entered this place, but he had already encountered a Demon King realm Demon King. It was hard to say what they would encounter if they continued to move forward. Perhaps he could even unlock a few gods from here. Thinking of this, he prepared to take another step forward. However, the heroes behind him did not agree with him. "Boy, I advise you to quickly retreat. In this place, you're lucky that you didn't die just now. Now, you want to directly charge forward. Do you know that you're simply courting death?" Lin Yuan did not pay attention to these guys. He lightly snorted. Then he glanced at Iron Egg and asked, "Are you satisfied with this guy?" He was naturally referring to the little boy Iron Egg's bodyguard. However, Iron Egg shook his head. "I want to rely on my own strength to convince my own bodyguard. This way, it's meaningless to me." Lin Yuan smiled slightly and nodded. "Boy, you have some ambition." Finally, he took Iron Egg's hand and continued forward. However, the heroes behind them clearly could not control their emotions. They shouted as they moved forward. "Don't go any further. If you really encounter any problems, I can't guarantee that we can save you." After he finished speaking, Lin Yuan gently waved his hand. "There's no need for that. Just wait for your god to arrive." These humans could naturally become bodyguards, but they were too weak. They could not even hold up the front. However, the Demon King in front of them coldly snorted. "What do you think this place is? It's as if you've stepped into an uninhabited place. If you continue to charge forward, I won't be polite." Lin Yuan raised his eyebrows and glanced at the Demon King. "I've never asked you to be polite." His words were instantly choked. The Demon King could not speak at all. Good. In that case, I'll show you what a Demon King's strength is." His body suddenly swelled up. At this moment, he seemed to have used the lawful embodiment of heaven and earth. Looking at this scene, Lin Yuan only shook his head indifferently. Even Bruiser couldn't stand it anymore. He said to the Archfiend, "I can't stand your tricks. Don't show it anymore. I don't like Archfiends like you." His words almost made the Medicine King's nose crooked from anger. Did this brat think that he wanted to show him his strength so that he could be promoted to be his bodyguard? He was courting death. He was simply courting death. To think that this Fiend King dared to provoke him in such a manner when he was not as strong as the Fiend King. Various thoughts flashed through the minds of the brave warriors. They had already decided not to make any more move. Furthermore, they did not want to help the two people behind the high ground who did not know what was going on. However, what they didn't expect was that, although the Demon King was huge and had even extended his large hand to slap down, Lin Yuan had actually swatted it away as if he was swatting a fly. He raised his hand. A rainbow-colored light instantly appeared on his hand. At this moment, all the light gathered on his wrist. In the next second, Lin Yuan only covered the Demon King's body with this light. The lawful embodiment of heaven and earth could no longer be used. The Medicine King's strong body was originally like a mountain. At this moment, his body actually started to fall. Seeing this, Lin Yuan smiled gently. "If you are willing to kneel down and submit to me, I can give you a chance to live." He was not joking. To him, the life and death of a Demon King did not matter at all. Moreover, this guy was not even as good as the Desert Wolf Demon King from before. At least, he did not stand out among the Demon Kings. This meant that he was definitely not as good as the Desert Wolf Demon King. But after he said this, the Demon King, who was as strong as an ape, suddenly slapped his chest. A loud sound reverberated through the entire vast ancient path. "I have never been so aggrieved in my life. You want to attack me at this time? No way." He had already roared. At this moment, all the Demon Kings began to cover their ears involuntarily. They could not withstand this powerful roar. However, Lin Yuan did not move at all. Not only him, but even Tai Dan, who was beside him, did not react. So what if you are loud? Being loud does not mean you can defeat us. Tai Dan had already taken a step forward. At this moment, he seemed to be prepared to fight with the Demon King to see who was stronger. But at this moment the two forces collided. They directly entered the Demon King's body from behind. His roar was some kind of signal. At this moment, he was directly controlling himself to send a message to his companions, allowing his companions to inject power into his body. As soon as this happened, Lin Yuan snorted. Seeing that you can't deal with me, you actually went to find help? As soon as Lin Yuan's voice fell, he had already reached out to grab the other party. This time, not only was the Demon King unable to do anything, but the powerful power that had just been injected into his body actually started to dissipate. Lin Yuan then gently shook his hand, and all the power was injected into Tai Dan's body. Seeing this, the Demon King was stunned. He had not expected that the power he had just received would become someone else's gift in the next moment. Impossible! This is absolutely impossible! Who on earth are you? Why is it so easy for it to become part of my power? He shouted in disbelief. Lin Yuan did not pay any attention to him. On the other hand, Tai Dan's face was flushed red. It seemed that he could not withstand this power at all. Seeing this, Lin Yuan frowned. Previously, he had injected the power into Tai Dan's body so that Tai Dan could receive it. That was why he had used his own methods to open up the veins in Tai Dan's body. However, he had not expected this. Tai Dan could not withstand the Demon King's power at all. At this moment, the other heroes also came up to him. You can't do this. This little guy's body is not fully developed at all. Moreover, he can't digest such a huge amount of power. This is harming him. Lin Yuan frowned. Can't digest it? Then I'll change my method. Chapter 1241. The special power in his hand began to condense slowly. In an instant, the seven-colored light began to drill into Little Iron Egg's body. Lin Yuan hadn't expected that Little Iron Egg's body would actually have such a rejection reaction. However, this didn't stop him from becoming a god. At this moment, he condensed the power he had extracted into a golden egg in Little Iron Egg's body. This way, he could slowly absorb the power here as his killing intent art improved. Little Iron Egg's expression finally eased a little. He was stunned for a moment before he asked, Master, what kind of power did you just inject into my body? Why is it so magical? It's more than twice as powerful as the Demon King's power. Upon hearing this, Lin Yuan just shook his head gently and smiled without saying anything. When your power increases in the future and you become a god, you will know the key to this. After saying this, he continued to pull Little Iron Egg forward. However, they didn't walk far before the heroes could no longer keep up with their pace. The leader of the heroes looked at their backs and shook his head. It's a pity that they don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Otherwise, given their strength, it would be easy for them to achieve something. Boss, don't think so much. Their lives are not something we can control. After saying this, these people turned in another direction and began to slowly withdraw from the vast ancient path. In their opinion, these people's reckless actions had nothing to do with them. They could even foresee the future. However, they couldn't follow them inside now. After all, if something went wrong, it wouldn't be so easy to solve. At this moment, what they didn't know was that everything in the factory had already been destroyed. The statue of the Night Patrol god had been destroyed. This was simply an unpredictable thing for the people here. In their opinion, everything seemed to have become a foregone conclusion. Therefore, they weren't prepared to continue staying here. Rather than suffer the wrath of the Night Patrol god, they might as well start a new life somewhere else. They didn't want to be involved in this kind of thing anymore. However, when they saw the returning brave warriors, their eyes twitched violently. Did you guys recklessly go to the vast ancient path again? The city lord said directly. Upon hearing his words, the leader of the brave warriors stepped forward. That's right. However, there are already two people who don't know the difference between life and death on this vast ancient road. I think we should. Just as he finished speaking, he realized that the huge and towering statue of the god of night in the center of the city had collapsed. Not only that, the people in the city couldn't help but sigh. What's going on? Who destroyed this statue? They naturally knew that it was the desert wolf demon king, but he had always been protected by this statue. As long as the statue was in the desert, the wolf demon king could protect the people in the city and would not punish them for no reason. Their so-called resistance was only a resistance against the desert wolf. They did not dare to make any moves against the desert wolf demon king, because they were afraid that their anger would implicate the people in the city. But now, the statue had been destroyed. What else could have happened? 2 days ago, a young man came out of nowhere. He brought little iron egg with him, and directly destroyed the statue of the god of night. When he finished speaking, there was a hint of light in the sky. Seeing this scene, everyone's hearts trembled slightly. Because in everyone's opinion, because there was a headquarters here, there were no special creatures that would come here. But now they actually saw a desert eagle. This was good news for them. It also meant that their living environment had undergone a fundamental change. However, one of the heroes was slightly stunned. The young man that the people in the city are talking about, could it be the guy we just met on the vast ancient path? If it really is him, I'm afraid that there might be a turning point in this matter. If it weren't for the fact that they had no other choice, no one would want to leave their home. Leaving the place where they were born and raised for so many years, at this moment everyone's thoughts began to move. They knew that this matter was out of the ordinary. However, they also understood that if they did not leave, they would attract the attention of the vast ancient path. At that time, they would incur the wrath of countless medicine kings. Of course, there was also the great archfiend king. Thinking of this, the hall master's expression became somewhat strange. Do you believe that this young man and little iron egg can really return from the vast ancient path alive? Moreover, they can bring back some good news. No one dared to speak, nor did they dare to answer. They could not say what kind of outcome this matter would ultimately lead to. If they could really come back, then it would be fine. But if they couldn't, then everything was equivalent to having no chance at all. On the other side, Lin Yuan's expression changed slightly. Their path had been blocked by some black iron towers. Lin Yuan's expression was somewhat hesitant. What is this place? Because he could already sense that there was no way to deal with the demonic qi in the iron towers. It was as if they were suddenly cut off from the world. Lin Yuan frowned, but in the next second, little iron egg had already taken 2 steps forward. The black tower rose into the sky. Seeing this scene, Lin Yuan shook his head gently. Master, this place seems a little strange. Why don't we go in and take a look? This place can't be entered as we wish, he said indifferently. He could tell that this place was a little strange. Moreover, he could sense that the aura that appeared at this moment should have a special kind of strange power. The inside of the black tower was like a breathing person. Normally, they would constantly breathe in and out, and then some power would seep out. When he sensed this, Lin Yuan slightly narrowed his eyes. At this moment, the door of the black tower finally opened. A majestic suction force directly sucked the 2 of them into the tower. Lin Yuan was a little surprised. He did not expect that this place was the Black Tower. It was actually so strange that he was directly sucked in without even sensing it. However, in the next second all his thoughts were focused. He could see the weight of the Black Tower, the various characters that appeared on the first floor. It was so strange. It even seemed a little ethereal. Chapter 1242. Little Iron Egg couldn't react at all. What was going on? He even felt that the Black Tower in front of him shouldn't be anything special. From his point of view, everything here seemed to have appeared in his dream. Seeing this, Lin Yuan's expression finally changed. He could see that these were some special summoning arrays. As long as you touched the array's portrait, something would come out. Little Iron Egg sighed faintly. Master, there seems to be something special hiding here. Do you want me to go check it out first? Lin Yuan nodded slightly. It could be seen that the things built in this black tower shouldn't be so simple. However, even if the things here were very tyrannical, so what? With his cultivation and strength, it shouldn't be so difficult to crush the things here. But at this moment, just as Lin Yuan's thought appeared, a flash of light appeared. Then, everything in the black tower appeared before their eyes. Those characters seemed to come alive at this moment. Seeing this, Lin Yuan shook his head slightly. It seems that there are some special demon kings in this place. Before Little Iron Egg could walk forward, Lin Yuan pulled him back. Then he sighed softly. This thing isn't something you can deal with. Wait for it to show itself. As soon as his voice fell, the red light began to gather. The characters overlapped and appeared in front of them to suppress the three-headed hound. This three-headed hound wasn't smaller than the Desert Wolf Demon King. In fact, it was even bigger. Moreover, there were some special black flames burning on its body. When Lin Yuan saw this, he was slightly stunned. Is this the three-headed hound of hell? His mind began to move. If this was really the case, this place was really interesting. He smiled and took a step forward. However, the three-headed hound of hell directly spat out a mouthful of flames. Roar! A roar came out of its mouth. Immediately after, the entire ground was set ablaze by the flames. Little Iron Egg directly used his strength to block the flames. Lin Yuan really seemed to turn a blind eye to the flame. He gently stepped on the flame and walked forward from the flame step by step. I thought it was something amazing. So it's just a gatekeeper dog. Lin Yuan's words instantly angered the three-headed hound of hell. The three dog heads spat out flames directly at Lin Yuan. Lin Yuan didn't even try to dodge. He walked forward step by step. The flames could pass through his body. When Little Iron Egg saw this, he was stunned. He didn't expect his master to be so powerful. At this moment, Lin Yuan's hand touched one of the dog heads. He stroked it gently. Then he said, "How's that? Be obedient and follow me. Otherwise, I'll smash your head." After he finished speaking, the three-headed hell hound opened its mouth and started sucking on his arm. Lin Yuan took a step back. You really don't know what's good for you. He did have the strength to smash the dog's head. But at this moment, he slowly took a step forward and reached out to grab the hellhound's neck. With such a scale, the scene was extremely disharmonious. It was like a person grabbing an elephant. Moreover, the elephant looked huge, but it couldn't move at all. Seeing this, Lin Yuan's expression changed because he could feel that the head of the three-headed hound was separated from its body. To be exact, it was a long neck. It was like a python stabbing towards his body. He took a step back. Interesting. It seems that you don't just have the bloodline of the hellhound. After Lin Yuan finished his sentence, he kept moving in the field, and the three dog heads chased after him for a while and hit him fiercely. Lin Yuan's movements were swift. The dog heads were fast. Almost in an instant, they had already overlapped each other. At this moment, Lin Yuan suddenly stopped in his track. Although you guys seem to be more powerful, the only thing you guys lack is that you guys don't have any intelligence. His words made Little Iron Egg, who was beside him, blush with shame. Little Iron Egg didn't even know what intelligence was. At this moment, one could clearly see that the three dog heads were entangled together. There was no sign of them being able to break free. He even clapped his hands and cheered, as expected of Master. He can deal with such monsters with just a little trick. Lin Yuan didn't say anything. He knew that it would be easy to deal with these guys so easily. Moreover, he knew that this guy must have other powers that he hadn't used yet. As expected, right at this moment, the three dog heads suddenly began to spray flames all over the sky and earth. Then, their bodies were covered with countless flames. Under the burning of the flames, their bodies began to grow bigger. Then, they gradually split into 3 aggressive dogs. Lin Yuan could clearly see that the other party's fangs had stretched out, and there was a special smell coming from the mouths of the 3 dog heads. Lin Yuan chuckled. Then, he turned around and rushed toward one of the dog heads. You still want to struggle? I told you, if you anger me, I will blow your dog heads off. After saying that, he clenched his fist. Then, with a bang, he punched one of the dog heads. Although it didn't explode, it made the dog involuntarily take a few steps back. He didn't know what his opponent's bottom line was. Just this one punch was enough to make him lose his ability to fight. The other 2 dogs also involuntarily took a step back. Lin Yuan sneered. It's too late to be afraid now. Just as he said that, a burst of laughter came from the 2nd level of the tower. I didn't expect to welcome someone of this level here. I apologize for not going out to welcome him. Then, a man dressed in white slowly walked down from the 2nd level of the tower. His expression was calm. His white clothes were whiter than snow. He looked ethereal. He was like an immortal who walked out of a painting. Chapter 1243. Lin Yuan raised his eyebrows slightly. As the saying went, one had to look at the owner before beating a dog. Under such circumstances, Lin Yuan naturally could not continue to smash the dog's head. He looked at the person in front of him and smiled. I didn't expect to see such a handsome person here. It's really rare. The white-clothed person did not say anything. Instead, he smiled and waved his hand, causing a table and chair to appear in front of him. Looking at the table and chair that appeared in front of him, Lin Yuan did not stand on ceremony and directly sat down. Meanwhile, Tai Dan stood behind him. The white-clothed person really had the aura of a celestial. With a wave of his hand, a steaming hot tea was placed in front of Lin Yuan. However, at this moment, Tai Dan whispered into his ear, "Master, he should be a celestial. His aura is extraordinary. He has always been the one guarding this tower." Lin Yuan softly acknowledged. Looking at the white-clothed person in front of him, he said calmly, "I didn't expect that there would be someone with such an extraordinary aura among you demons. However, my disciple has been deceived by your appearance. Why don't you reveal your true form and let me take a look?" The white-clothed person's expression was originally calm. However, after hearing what he said, his expression suddenly changed. He snorted coldly, "What do you mean by me treating you with respect?" Lin Yuan had a smile on his face. However, the corners of his eyes and the tips of his eyebrows were lowered. In the end, he directly said, "Of course, what I mean is, since you're treating me with respect, why did you trap us in this tower for no reason? Do you think that I can't tell that you're using such a method?" After Lin Yuan finished speaking, the white-clothed person's expression changed slightly. Naturally, he could tell. At this moment, his method had been seen through. His expression was somewhat unsightly. "I didn't think that my touch would fail to satisfy your eyes. However, so what? Do you know that this pagoda of mine is a treasure that is hard to come by? Almost none of those trapped here have been able to escape. Not to mention humans, even Yao Kings can do nothing about it. They can only obediently follow my orders." After he finished speaking, Lin Yuan raised his eyebrows. "Based on what you're saying, it seems that you were the one who sent out the demon kings in the city." When he spoke, he was no longer as indifferent as before. His voice had turned cold. Hearing this, the man in white laughed maniacally. "So what if it's my roommate? It's precisely because of this that I can guard this area. Otherwise, how do you think I can manage these demon kings here? If it weren't for my methods, the human cities would have been destroyed long ago." After he finished speaking, he picked up the teacup in his hand and took a sip. Seeing this change, Lin Yuan chuckled. "All right, since that's the case, I'll make it so that no other demon king can order me around." After he finished speaking, he slammed the table fiercely, causing the table to shatter into pieces. The man in white immediately retreated. Then, a string of bells appeared in his hand. He threw the bells out. The bell grew in size out of thin air and directly covered Lin Yuan. When Bruiser saw this, he began to hit the bell like a madman. However, the man in white laughed loudly. "This demon-binding spirit isn't something you can break. No matter who it is, as long as they enter, they will turn into pus and blood in a short moment." Lin Yuan was trapped inside, but he could hear what the man outside was saying. He reached out his hand and gently knocked on the bell. A series of crisp sounds rang out. At this moment, he snorted coldly. "You're still lacking if you want to deal with me with such a thing." After he finished speaking, Lin Yuan took a step forward. He directly punched the bells at the side. In the blink of an eye, a crack appeared in the leader's heart. Seeing this change, Lin Yuan snorted, "I didn't expect this thing to be so sturdy." However, after he finished speaking, he clenched his fist and punched the bells again. Then, everything seemed to have gone wrong. At this moment, the man in white walked over step by step. Rays of light appeared in his hand and enveloped Lin Yuan. Seeing this scene, Lin Yuan just smiled lightly, and then directly grabbed the hand of the man in white with one hand. Then, he shook violently. Wan Yi's white robes immediately retreated at this moment, revealing the smooth fur on his body. Lin Yuan smiled. "Little Iron Egg, look carefully. What exactly is this thing?" After saying this, he clenched his hand. This person, who was originally dressed in white, directly fell to the ground. How was this a person? This was simply a snow-white tiger with a multicolored body. The guy cried bitterly on the ground, then stood up immediately. "Oh, I'm going to eat you, you reckless human." However, as soon as he finished speaking, Lin Yuan snorted coldly. "It seems that smashing a dog's head isn't enough. Let's smash a tiger's head." After he finished speaking, he stretched out his fist again and smashed it hard on the tiger's head. At this moment, everything seemed to have stopped. Little Iron Egg, who was watching from the side, was in a daze. "What's going on? How did he turn into a tiger?" Lin Yuan smiled. This was a multicolored great demon king. However, its realm was much higher than the other demons. Otherwise, it would not be able to control those guys out of thin air. Seeing such a scene, Lin Yuan dragged this guy to the front of Little Iron Egg. "Since you can control these drugs, you can be my disciple's guard. That's not bad." After hearing Lin Yuan's words, Little Iron Egg was stunned. He wanted to refuse at first, but he immediately sensed the tiger's special aura. He walked over quietly and opened the tiger's mouth. "Master, I really like this tiger. It's just that his teeth look a little scary. Otherwise, I would have pulled his teeth out." After he finished speaking, the multicolored tiger, who originally wanted to refuse to give in, immediately retreated at this moment. Don't do this. Otherwise, I'm afraid I won't have the strength of a demon king." After saying this, it turned back into its human form and knelt down in front of Little Iron Egg. Chapter 1244. Lin Yuan narrowed his eyes slightly. He hadn't expected the tiger to speak in such a manner. This was a dignified demon king. Since that was the case, he obediently laid down beside Little Iron Egg. Lin Yuan smiled and said, "There seems to be something else hidden in this pagoda." Just as he finished speaking, the obedient half-Mongolian turned into a kitten. "There are monster kings here who are much stronger than me. If you really dare to go in, I'm afraid you will be doomed." The multicolored tiger clearly didn't want them to infiltrate further at this moment. Lin Yuan was a little surprised by its behavior. "It seems like you don't want us to go in," Lin Yuan said calmly. Indeed, when he finished speaking, the ferocious tiger was indeed as obedient as a kitten as it lay on the ground. "I really don't want to harm you. Since I've become one of your people, I naturally won't let you go into the fire pit under such circumstances. The people here are much stronger than me. It seemed to be explaining anxiously. Even Bruiser, who was standing at the side, believed him. Master, if that's the case, why don't we not go in first? After all, we have gained some benefits from this trip. However, just as he finished speaking, Lin Yuan shook his head. There must be a demon behind this abnormality. It seems like you still don't understand. After he finished speaking, he took a step forward. Then, with a light tap of his hand, the tiger disappeared into Iron Egg's body. At this moment, he no longer wanted to think about anything else. In his opinion, for such a barren city to have so many monsters, there must be something special here. When he thought of this, he took a step forward. This place was too strange. The fact that so many monsters were hiding here meant that this place was definitely not ordinary. Therefore, at this time, Lin Yuan decided to step in directly to see what was going on. However, before he could finish his sentence, Tai Dan hesitated for a long time. At that moment, the tiger hidden in his body seemed to have a problem. Tai Dan-er's body began to slowly become thicker. His four limbs also became abnormally strong. He didn't look like he did before. Lin Yuan quietly looked at such a scene. He knew that there must be something unusual about the state that appeared at this time. However, he understood that this problem wasn't a bad thing. The tiger wanted to take over Iron Egg's body, so it was trying its best to fuse with Iron Egg's body. If Lin Yuan didn't do anything, Iron Egg's life would be in danger. Furthermore, this danger wouldn't be so simple. However, right at this moment, Iron Egg's eyes suddenly turned red from eating. I'm going to kill you, you bastard. You destroyed my cultivation and destroyed my foundation. Although these words came out of Iron Egg's mouth, Lin Yuan knew that they weren't coming out of Iron Egg's mouth. Lin Yuan squinted as the seven-colored light in his hand revolved around his eyes. So you think that you can deal with me by controlling his body? Lin Yuan was as calm as ever. Seeing this change, Taigon-er's expression suddenly froze. Even if I can't deal with you, I'll still get what I want by killing this kid. After saying this, Iron Egg's body started to grow involuntarily like a seedling that had been fattened up. Lin Yuan shook his head faintly. His original intention was to let this guy assist Bruiser and help him become a god. However, he didn't expect that at this moment, everything seemed to have gone wrong. This guy was actually rebelling. Lin Yuan flicked his finger gently. At this moment, a wave of seven-colored light shot out from his hand and directly entered Tai Tai's body. However, the muscles on his body started to grow involuntarily, as if they were being controlled by something. Then, they slowly grew to the size of a small mountain. I know that the lawful embodiment of heaven and earth won't be able to deal with you. However, don't think that I'm just like that useless wolf king who only knows how to use heaven and earth. As soon as he finished speaking, he came out of the cave. His head smashed viciously against Lin Yuan's body. No matter who you already have misgivings in your heart. Therefore, you are simply no match for me. Give up. This is your destiny. Lin Yuan hadn't wanted to say anything at first. However, when he saw Iron Egg's attacks on his body, he couldn't help but say something. Are you tickling me? Why aren't you doing anything? Iron Egg's face fell when he heard this. He hadn't expected that his attacks would be so insignificant to Luo Yunyang. Luo Yunyang didn't even frown. What kind of behavior is this? How can you be so valiant? Even my attacks can't break through your defense. At this moment, the tiger knew that even though it had borrowed the body of this mortal, its cultivation base was still there. His initial attacks had only been to probe the opponent. However, every move he used now was a killing move. He didn't hold back at all. Even so, he couldn't cause any harm to Luo Yunyang. Luo Yunyang had even started to yawn. My disciple's body has been occupied by you, yet you can only use this much power. It seems like you aren't qualified to be his guard. After saying this, he swung his hand fiercely, sending Iron Egg's body crashing against the wall. Lin Yuan didn't stop attacking. He knew that even if he attacked Iron Egg now, the damage would still land on Iron Egg's body. Ever since Iron Egg had started to rebel, Luo Yunyang had already made up his mind to kill him. After all, no one wanted to keep such a scourge by their side. When he thought of this, Lin Yuan's movements started to become more violent. Finally, at this moment, Lin Yuan grabbed Tai Danner's neck. Seems like you are no longer of any use. Get out here. Chapter 1245. Lin Yuan's movements were clean and nimble, like moving clouds and flowing water. After he finished this action, the tiger that had been hiding in Tai Tai's body finally appeared again. Lin Yuan fiercely punched the other party's skull. Dong! There was a muffled sound, but there was no reaction. Bruiser finally recovered, but his movements were still a little stiff. He didn't seem to have noticed what had happened. He stared blankly at the tiger's corpse on the ground, lost in thought. Master, what's going on? Bruiser's bewilderment made Lin Yuan chuckle. This guy wanted to control you to deal with me, so I killed him. As for your reincarnation, let's find another monster to replace you for now. His words were said very lightly, as if he was talking about casually changing into a new set of clothes. However, Bruiser didn't know what was going on with the alcohol. He only felt his body suddenly become clear, as if something had been removed from his body. Looking at the scene in front of him, he didn't hesitate too much. He just nodded gently and said, "Then what should we do next?" Lin Yuan narrowed his eyes. "Next, we'll take another step forward. We'll go to the next floor and see what's going on." After he finished speaking, he pulled the bewildered Iron forward. He naturally knew that they would encounter more problems in this situation. Moreover, there seemed to be a huge monster hiding in the Black Tower. However, he didn't care about these things. To him, with his strength and the existence of the system, he had nothing to fear. At this moment, he was already thinking of ways to subdue some monster kings. He knew that in this place, in the territory of the God Worship sect, it wasn't strange at all. Moreover, it was very likely that the God Worship sect had set up some kind of trap. At this moment, they must have made up their mind to pave the way for this. Otherwise, there wouldn't be so many monster kings gathered here. When he thought of this, he walked up to the next floor step by step. Bruiser, on the other hand, felt uneasy. This was because he didn't know what he was going to face next. He instinctively felt that something must have happened when he fell asleep, but he didn't know what it was. Just as he was pondering, he had been pulled directly to the next floor by Lin Yuan. On this floor, as soon as they came in, it was full of fog. There didn't seem to be anything else here, and he couldn't see anything else clearly. It was just shrouded in fog. Lin Yuan's expression was a little hesitant. Of course, he couldn't tell what these things were. However, he instinctively felt that there was something wrong with the things that appeared in front of him at this moment. Lin Yuan narrowed his eyes and looked at the fog in front of him. He instinctively felt that the mist seemed to be absorbing the power in his body, but he wasn't sure, or rather, he couldn't find out what was absorbing his power. Lin Yuan frowned. He didn't expect that there would be such a thing hidden here, and he couldn't find its whereabouts at all. Interesting. I didn't expect the Church of Gods to be so capable. I didn't expect to find such a monster here. After he finished speaking, he turned in another direction because he could clearly see that in the fog, there was a strong silhouette approaching them step by step. Lin Yuan was a little puzzled. He didn't expect to see such a strong thing here, and it didn't look like a monster king. There wasn't even any fluctuation of monster chi on its body. Seeing this change, Lin Yuan smiled softly. He hadn't felt like this for a long time. He seemed to have met his long-awaited prey. "Don't let me find you if you hide here. If I find you, it won't be as simple as being killed by me." After he finished speaking, he threw out a colorful light from his hand. At this moment, the huge figure had also revealed itself in the fog. It was a towering tree. However, there was already a human face on his tree trunk. When he saw this scene, Bruiser was clearly shocked. However, he immediately glanced at Lin Yuan, who was next to him, and calmed down. "Master, what exactly is this thing?" Tai Dan'er asked blankly. Lin Yuan nodded gently. "This thing is a tree demon. However, its intelligence has been taken away by someone. Now, all that's left is this body for someone to control. However, this is quite a big deal. They actually used 1,000-year-old Yao King's soul essence." After he finished speaking, he stretched out his hand and gently patted it. A flame immediately appeared in his hand. Then, he directly swallowed the tree demon. The flame burned. The sound of a peeper rang out. It was as if it wasn't a tree that was burning, but steel. Lin Yuan closed his eyes and looked at the scene in front of him. The burning flame just now didn't weaken the surrounding fog. In fact, the surrounding fog became thicker. He knew that this was definitely not an ordinary matter. There must be something controlling everything in the dark. However, he was now the target and prey. "From now on, follow me closely. Don't leave me by even half an inch. If you leave my range, you might encounter something. If you can't protect your life, I won't care," Lin Yuan said softly. At this moment, Tai Dan didn't feel that his words were worth much. He clearly knew that if he wanted to stay by his master's side, he had to have the corresponding strength. What he had obtained was more than enough. At least compared to before, he had not only taken his revenge, but also had a cultivation base now. If nothing unexpected happened, his master would give him a special identity and turn these things into his guards. With such generous conditions, how could he possibly complain? Now, he only hated that he wasn't strong enough to match his master's strength. However, even though he sighed, he still followed Lin Yuan's footsteps closely. He knew that in this special place, if he was careless, he might not have a chance to live. Chapter 1246. It was also at this moment that countless vines began to reach out from the surroundings and entangle them. The vines came so suddenly that they were caught off guard. Lin Yuan's figure moved slightly and he dodged the other party's attack. The sudden attack in the fog didn't seem to make him flustered. It even made him feel a little amused. At this time, this guy actually wanted to use such a method to deal with him. This was simply a fool's dream. However, before he could react, he clearly saw that there were rays of light wrapped around his wrist. Wrapped in the rays of light were human heads. Lin Yuan frowned. He didn't expect that there would be such an existence in this place. It seemed that this guy was a scourge. When many people thought of this, his movements became even more violent. He began to tear the vines apart. His movements were extremely violent. It even made people feel that he had a grudge against these vines. However, what no one expected was that as he tore them apart, the vines actually divided into two. Two divided into four. It was as if they could reproduce endlessly. Seeing this change, Bruiser already had thoughts of retreating. After all, he was only a child. After seeing the means of so many monster kings, he didn't know if he could continue to persevere and walk with his master. At this moment, Lin Yuan suddenly moved. He directly opened his mouth, and a majestic flame flew out from his mouth. At this moment, Bruiser was almost stunned. He didn't expect that his master would be able to use such a powerful attack at this moment. The temperature of the flame was so hot that he had no choice but to dodge. Even if he had the power given to him by his master, he still had to dodge the flame because he felt that if he didn't dodge, it was very likely that he would be directly swallowed by the flame. He died on the spot. Lin Yuan's mouth was like a flamethrower. He kept spewing flames around him. As the flames evaporated, the seemingly dense fog began to weaken. Lin Yuan had been using his eyes to observe the surroundings. He was looking for the instigator here. He was looking for the person who released these weapons. After all, the 1,000-year-old Jing Ku, who could control and seize the Monster King, wasn't someone who could be easily dealt with. When he thought of this, his mind began to move fiercely again. In his opinion, everything was already set in stone. At this moment, no matter what methods these guys used, they couldn't do anything to the other party. And he was also happy to play such a game. Since the other party wanted to fight as the hunter and the prey, he could only reluctantly choose this way of fighting. Now, he wanted to force the other party to show himself. Everything would be easy if the other party showed himself. When he thought of this, the speed at which Lin Yuan spewed flames became a little faster. It didn't take long for a cyclone to form in the fog. The cyclone didn't stop. At this moment, everything began to change. Slowly, the mist began to burn. At this moment, Lin Yuan finally stopped the movement of his mouth. Naturally, he didn't just want to retreat. When he spewed flames, he seeped his power into the fog. He wanted to use this method to completely dissolve the other party's attack. Not only that, he also considered another situation, which was to force the other party to show himself. Since the other party wasn't willing to show himself, he had to force the other party to show himself. Only then could he find the other party's key. Sure enough, when the fog disappeared, Lin Yuan found that caves appeared one after another on the ground. In this cabin tower, the world seemed to be a separate space and a small world. Lin Yuan narrowed his eyes and looked at the caves on the ground. He knew that the instigator must be underground. He could even clearly see the smoke emitted from the cave. All the smoke came from here. Lin Yuan's expression changed slightly. He snorted coldly and then casually pointed at Lin Yuan. A flame spewed out from his hand and directly fell into the cave. It felt like he was catching a cunning rabbit. Lin Yuan didn't hesitate. He wanted to find the other party at this critical moment. But what he didn't expect was that just as his movements changed a little, a bald head would suddenly pop out of nowhere. It was a rabbit without any hair on its head. Lin Yuan reached out to grab the rabbit's ears. But before his hand landed, the rabbit had already returned to the cave. At this moment, Little White, who was on his wrist, actually hissed and spat out apricots. "Do you want to deal with this guy?" Lin Yuan lowered his head and looked at the guy on his wrist. He didn't expect Little White to take the initiative at this moment. I immediately reached out my hand. Sure enough, Little White twisted its body and began to move into the cave. The moment it left Lin Yuan's arm, its body began to expand. With a bite, the snake's body was as thick as a bucket. It directly drilled into the cave. At this moment, Bruiser was dumbfounded. It was as if he didn't know what was going on. He pointed at the white snake and asked, "Master, is that a dragon in your hand?" But just as he finished his sentence, Lin Yuan shook his head. "It's just a random pet. There's no need to make a fuss." After he finished speaking, he turned his head around. He stood quietly at the entrance of the cave. He knew that since Little White wanted to take the initiative to deal with the rabbit, it meant that this fellow definitely had a way to solve the current problem. When he thought of this, Lin Yuan narrowed his eyes and waited at the entrance of the cave. He knew that no matter what, the rabbit couldn't escape. But at this moment, a burst of smoke suddenly ignited in the cave. It was as if something had exploded, causing the entire underground cave to tremble. Then, Whitey crawled out of the cave, its body completely black. However, it wasn't without results, because the child was holding the bald rabbit in his mouth. Chapter 1247. However, it wasn't without results, because the child was holding the bald rabbit in its mouth. Seeing this scene, Lin Yuan just smiled gently. "I didn't expect you to have a way." He didn't expect Little White to be able to catch this slippery guy like a loach in this place, because even he had to spend some effort to find the rabbit, but Little White seemed to have a natural restraining effect, and the rabbit couldn't escape at all. Lin Yuan's words caused Little White to be dissatisfied. She twisted her body and shook off the black stains on her body. At this moment, the rabbit was already obediently lying on the ground. Although it looked like a human, it still maintained the most primitive state of 4 limbs on the ground. Did you just use those tricks to kill us with the poison bow? Lin Yuan saw through the rabbit's flaw with one sentence, because he already clearly saw that the rabbit had more than one kind of poison in the fog. When he said this, he directly asked this question, but after he said this sentence, the rabbit actually shook its head. In fact, Lin Yuan also felt a little surprised, because in his opinion, the rabbit in front of him was fine, and was even very weak, not even reaching the Demon King realm. While seeing this change, he was also a little puzzled. The tiger on the previous level was already very powerful, but this rabbit was actually 1 level above the tiger, so it should be much stronger than the tiger. However, he didn't know why the rabbit was so weak. Lin Yuan frowned. "You bald head, why are you 1 level higher than the tiger?" After he said this sentence, the rabbit actually turned its head to the side. It was as if it didn't want to look at him at all. Lin Yuan's expression changed slightly. He naturally could see that the rabbit was a little stubborn at this moment. Lin Yuan walked straight over, then grabbed the fur on the rabbit's body, and then gave it a hard slap. "If you don't speak, I'll pluck all the fur off your body." After he said this, the rabbit was indeed a little evasive, but it still stubbornly didn't want to do anything. Seeing this, Lin Yuan smiled faintly. "Little Iron Egg, have you eaten roasted rabbit meat before?" After he said this, Little Iron Egg was a little excited. He directly took a step forward. "I love eating this thing the most, and I have a lot of experience in dealing with it. If Master is willing, I can help you deal with it right away." He said this without the slightest hesitation. It was as if he was very interested in everything. He seemed to be unable to restrain himself, and directly rushed over. Seeing this scene, Lin Yuan smiled. He could see that the bald rabbit was a little evasive at this moment. Even so, it wasn't afraid. It was at this moment that Lin Yuan's expression suddenly changed, because he found that this guy actually seemed to want to escape. But at this moment, Little Iron Egg to grab the rabbit's ear. The rabbit was as tall as a person, while Little Iron Egg was only half his height. However, he wasn't afraid at all. He directly sat on the rabbit's back and grabbed the rabbit's ear tightly. "Stop right there!" Little Bruiser shouted loudly. Just as he finished shouting, the fellow next to him, who was the rabbit, who hadn't dared to make a move all this while, finally opened his mouth. "What exactly do you want? Why do you have to make things difficult for me? I'm nothing more than a servant of someone else." After he said this, he had a bitter look on his face. Lin Yuan smiled faintly. "Then who was the one who enslaved you?" He wanted to know what else was hidden in this place, because he felt that everything had changed when he stepped on this floor. This place seemed to be a special world with a bottomless abyss. When he saw this scene, Lin Yuan's expression changed slightly. He could clearly feel the vastness of this world, but the rabbit's appearance was too abrupt. "You can't do anything even if I tell you. Although you can deal with me, you can't deal with the thing behind me." When he said this, there was a trace of fear on his face. When Lin Yuan saw this, he shook his head gently. "No matter what, you have to tell me who's behind you. Otherwise, I don't care if I can eat more roasted rabbit meat today." After he said this, the rabbit finally lowered its head. "You forced me to do this. I didn't want to do this at first, but you forced me to tell you who's behind this and who's involved in this matter. I had no choice but to do this." By the time he finished speaking, pustules had already started to appear on his body one after another. Lin Yuan frowned. This guy was clearly feeding himself to the poison. Now, he wanted to use his own power to release all the poison. This way, he would be able to force Lin Yuan and the others to retreat. When Little Iron Egg saw this, he naturally didn't dare to sit on the rabbit's back. He directly jumped back. At this moment, Lin Yuan suddenly blew out a breath of air. This breath of air was like a big mass of air surrounding the rabbit. I originally wanted to eat roasted rabbit meat, but it seems like you're not very obedient. Why don't I just turn you into a roasted rabbit? After he said this, the ball of air dragged the rabbit and jumped into the air. The rabbit originally wanted to release all the poison on its body, but at this moment it didn't have any leeway to resist. Lin Yuan didn't know how many monster kings he had dealt with, let alone this little guy who wasn't even a monster king. His movements started to become a lot more ferocious. At this moment, a ball of fire appeared on his hand and directly flew towards the ball of air. When this happened, pustules kept appearing on the rabbit's body. However, it suddenly opened its mouth and spat out a mouthful of purple-red smoke. The smoke seemed to have an extremely strong corrosive effect. It could corrode the ball of air. Lin Yuan snorted coldly. You still want to use such a method of concealment at a time like this? You still want to use such a method to escape? After he said this, the flames inside directly surrounded the ball of air. Waves of foul smell came from the ball of air. Chapter 1248. Lin Yuan could naturally tell that this fellow wanted to self-detonate first and then use the origin spirit to escape. How could he give this fellow this opportunity? As soon as he thought of this, he reached out his hand. Because in his opinion, it was almost impossible to directly operate such a simple method. It was the bald rabbit. It obviously didn't think that way. He snorted coldly. Don't think that you can catch me just because your cultivation level is high. Even if, the rabbit originally wanted to shout, but he didn't expect that as soon as he opened his mouth, a wave of energy would instantly entangle him. He didn't even finish his sentence. He stood there in a daze. At that moment, a bell had appeared in Lin Yuan's hand. At that moment, a ray of golden light finally entangled him. When he saw this scene, he didn't react at all. The rabbit stood on the spot in a daze. It was as if he didn't know how to express his feelings. He didn't even know what was going on. When he saw this change, Bruiser was also stunned. Master, what's going on? As soon as he asked this, Lin Yuan chuckled softly. Don't think that these fellows are so easy to get to know. They will use all sorts of methods to deal with us, so we should be more cautious at all times. After saying this, he didn't hesitate at all and reached out to grab the rabbit in front of him. When he saw this scene, the rabbit didn't react at all. He directly grabbed Lin Yuan with his back in his hand, or rather, he held his origin spirit in his hand. Lin Yuan smiled faintly. I don't know if you've heard of the soul-searching hand. The moment he finished speaking, the rabbit's expression changed drastically. The rabbit even started to kick his legs in confusion, as if he didn't know how to deal with what was going to happen next. When he saw this change, Lin Yuan shook his head gently. Tell me who's behind this and I'll let you live. Otherwise, I'll destroy your body and soul right here. He wasn't lying. If these fellows were really unwilling to tell him who was behind this, then he could really destroy their bodies and souls. Furthermore, he hadn't found the purpose of this deal yet, so he had already lost his patience. At that moment the rabbit finally sighed and said, All right, I'll tell you, but you have to be sure that you can't do anything to me. After saying this, Lin Yuan recalled the bell in his hand. At this moment, with his action, the light emitted by the bell began to converge. The rabbit couldn't take it anymore. All right, I'm afraid of you. I can tell you the whole story, but, originally, he wanted to talk about conditions, but when he thought of Lin Yuan's actions just now, he shut his mouth and didn't make any more sound. In fact, every floor of this pagoda is sealed with the body of a devil god. None of us can suppress this devil god. That's why this pagoda appeared. This pagoda is also the foundation of God worship sect. They sealed this thing and didn't want it to come out. Lin Yuan narrowed his eyes. Since the people of the God worship sect didn't want this devil god to come out, it meant that they either had no way to completely eliminate this devil god, or they wanted to use this devil god for other purposes. When Lin Yuan thought of this, he sighed faintly. Previously, he felt that something was wrong on the first floor, but he wasn't sure what was inside. Now that he heard the rabbit say this, he naturally knew that the thing inside was definitely not as simple as he thought. When he thought of this, he nodded gently. So, each floor seals a part of this devil god's body. As long as they are combined, they will be resurrected. Is this devil god right? Whether it was among these methods or other aspects, his conjecture should be the most appropriate. At this moment, after he finished speaking, the rabbit at the side finally nodded its head. In order to control this guy, our demigod sect invested a lot of effort. Although we can't see anything special at this time, this is still an elite of our god worship sect. Lin Yuan nodded gently, then waved at the rabbit. The golden light began to dissipate. Lin Yuan didn't want to use other means to deal with this guy. Since he already knew what he wanted to know, he naturally couldn't go back on his words. However, the rabbit didn't want to end this matter so easily. Just before it left, the rabbit suddenly threw one purple smoke ball after another behind it. When he saw this scene, Lin Yuan showed a hint of anger. It seems that you really don't know what's good for you. Since I've already let you go, you actually didn't think of escaping. Instead, you wanted to attack us. After he said this, the golden bell suddenly expanded and shone directly on the bald man's body. Then, it slowly shrank. It was as if the rabbit could not withstand the pressure of the golden bell at all. He was about to explode. When he saw this change, Tai Dan, who was next to him, was shocked. He had never seen such a bloody scene. At this moment, he even thought of some other ways to deal with this matter. However, at this moment, Lin Yuan snorted coldly. It was also at this moment that the fog in front of them slowly dissipated, reflecting a sea of flowers. Lin Yuan's expression slightly wrinkled, and at this time, the small white snake on his wrist also stood upright at this moment. It was as if he had discovered a crucial problem, or sensed some danger. Lin Yuan narrowed his eyes slightly. What's going on? It seems that the secret here isn't just on the rabbit. He immediately shook his head gently. It seems that this place is really interesting. Since it's a sealed demon god, let me see what kind of demon god is sealed here. After he finished speaking, he took a step forward. He directly crossed the boundary of the boat of the painted sea. At this moment, Tai Dan followed without any hesitation. Chapter 1249. Lin Yuan noticed the abnormality as soon as he stepped in. At this time, Tai Dan did not hesitate at all. After following Lin Yuan, he also felt that the surrounding situation was not quite right. Master, this seems to be a special formation. After Tai Dan finished speaking, Lin Yuan nodded gently. This is indeed a formation. Moreover, it's a formation that is extremely complicated. He was not joking because at this moment, he could see the difference in the array in front of him. It was as if a sea of confusion flowers had appeared in front of them. There were dangers hidden in the sea of flowers that they didn't know about. Even the path wasn't easy to see. Lin Yuan didn't want to say anything more at this moment, but at this moment, Lin Yuan found that the figure of Tai Gang next to him shook fiercely, and then the whole person disappeared in front of him. Lin Yuan was surprised. He didn't expect something like this to happen. However, after careful inspection, he found that there was nothing wrong with this kid. He just fell into a hole. The hole wasn't deep, but there were 5 colored crystals in it. Tai Tai held the crystal stones in surprise, and then said to Lin Yuan, who was outside the pit, "Master, what are these things? Why do they look so beautiful?" Lin Yuan did not speak, because he could not recognize what it was. At this moment, the stones turned into a mass of gas and disappeared directly in front of the two of them. When he saw this scene, Lin Yuan was indeed slightly taken aback, not knowing what was going on. At this moment, Lin Yuan finally saw the crux of the problem. The thing that appeared in front of him wasn't anything else. It was a heavenly martial Azura. This was a kind of war god in the Tianwu world. They were extremely powerful. Almost no one could rival them. They were even stronger than the demon kings. However, he didn't know why these celestial dance shuras would appear here. Under normal circumstances, not only would they not appear here, but such a poetic place shouldn't have such murderous intent lurking in it. But just as he was wondering, Lin Yuan found that these heavenly martial Azuras had been resurrected. They had swords and sabers in their hands. They slashed at the two of them. Lin Yuan gently raised his eyebrows. Now that Tai Dan had rushed out, he directly blocked the attack of the Tianwu Azura in front of him. Seeing such a scene, Lin Yuan did not say much. Instead, he looked at him quietly. He knew that the strength of this heavenly dance Azura was tyrannical, but he also understood that Iron Chain was not as weak as before. Tai Dan Er's strength was almost on par with the Demon King's. He had already digested a portion of the energy he gave Tai Dan, but at this moment, Lin Yuan narrowed his eyes. He had been carefully observing the battle. He knew that if anything happened to Tai Dan, he would have to lend a helping hand. However, before he could do anything, Tai Dan's chest seemed to be burning. He charged at the heavenly martial Azura without any regard for his life. Under this continuous attack, there was almost no hesitation. Each attack was stronger than the previous one. When Lin Yuan saw this scene, he couldn't help but be stunned by his appearance. In his opinion, everything was given to Little Iron Egg by him. If Little Iron Egg didn't use his energy to improve himself and didn't have the courage to face his enemies, then even if he gave him energy, he wouldn't be able to become stronger. Lin Yuan realized that not only was Tai Dan's talent outstanding, but his courage was also extraordinary. That was why he knew that at this moment, no matter what methods he used, or rather, whatever methods he had, he could leave them to him without setting up any defenses. The battle between Tai Dan and the heavenly martial Azura had already reached its climax. The heavenly martial Azura's entire body was steaming with blood. Tai Dan looked like an evil spirit from hell. Tai Dan stood where he was. His body was drenched in sweat. The two of them seemed to be standing on opposite sides of life and death. It was as if they were mortal enemies. The heavenly martial Azura charged again and again. Little Tai Dan blocked again and again. His small body carried an inconceivable amount of power as he charged at his opponent. Tai Dan didn't hesitate at all. His other methods started to become stronger and stronger. It was obvious that the heavenly martial Azura hadn't expected his attacks to be so powerful. Finally, Little Iron Egg let out a wild roar. His body began to emit waves of blood chi. The heavenly martial Azura was stunned. He opened his mouth and said in disbelief, "How could he be a natural-born Azura? This kid is actually a natural-born Azura." Before he could finish speaking, Lin Yuan frowned. He had overlooked this point. He hadn't expected that a random little boy would be able to secure such a huge guarantee in the borderlands. If Tai Dan was really a natural-born Azura, then his strength couldn't be measured by normal standards. However, it could also be that Tai Dan cultivation method had taken effect. Otherwise, how could Tai Dan explode with such powerful combat strength? Tai Dan had to wait until he saw the results. After all, it was too early to draw conclusions. Lin Yuan had already grabbed a small stone in front of him with one hand. He didn't want anyone to disturb the battle between Tai Dan and the fifth Azura. From the looks of it, Tai Dan's combat strength was extremely strong. It was time for him to increase his strength. If he was disturbed by others, it would ruin things. When he thought of this, Lin Yuan's movements became a little gentler, and he was now staring closely at a few asuras that appeared next to him. He knew that at this moment, if those asuras really wanted to use some other method to win with numbers, he would definitely not hesitate to take action. Perhaps it was at this moment that a special pattern began to appear on the iron rod's body. These patterns seemed to have a special mark on them. The moment they appeared, they brought with them a majestic blood chi to attack Tai Dan Er's body. Then Tai Dan Er shouted. Chapter 1250. Little Iron Tower's movements started to become dazzling. His movements became faster and faster, and each move seemed to be a killing move. Everything about him seemed to be a memory engraved in his bones. His air attacks became more and more powerful. Even the Tianwu Azura couldn't resist. Finally, on that day, Azura was defeated. His blade had already shattered. Little Iron Egg, on the other hand, only relied on his fist. He had actually defeated the other party with brute force. When Lin Yuan saw this scene, he gently nodded his hand. Well, go to the side and rest for a while. Leave the rest of these guys to me. As soon as he finished speaking, the Tianwu Azuras beside him pulled out their blades. When the defeated Tianwu Azura saw this, he sighed softly and turned to the Azuras behind him. We've met a true Tianwu Azura. No matter how strong we are, we can't deal with him. When he finished speaking, he knelt down in front of Little Iron Egg. Tianwu Azura, I look forward to the Azura King leading us back to the glory of the Azura race. When he finished speaking, he lowered his proud head. Lin Yuan didn't know how to react. Shouldn't someone of my status be unruly and unrestrained? Why did these guys submit so easily? He hadn't expected this. Little Iron Egg was even more embarrassed. He narrowed his eyes and turned to look at Lin Yuan. Master, I want them to be my guards. I don't want those monster kings. When he finished speaking, he knelt down in front of Lin Yuan without any hesitation. When he saw this, Lin Yuan already had a plan. Since this kid had such talent, he would create an Azura city for him in this place. At the very least, he would be able to display his strength. No matter what, he would be able to balance this place. At the very least, this place would no longer belong to the God-worship church. When he thought of this, he prepared to make a move. However, at that moment, Little Iron Egg's face was filled with joy. He even reached out and touched the foreheads of the Azuras. Lin Yuan was puzzled. He didn't know what Little Iron Egg was doing. Master, I am using my own methods to make them sign a subservient contract. This way, the contract between us will be unbreakable. When Little Iron Egg said this, it was as if he had already understood the situation thoroughly. At this moment, there was even a hint of pride on his face. Looking at this scene, Lin Yuan nodded gently. He knew that there was no need to discuss this matter any further. Since this kid already had his own plans and had the ability to recruit them as his subordinates, it would save him a lot of effort. Well, in that case, tell me, where is the so-called demon god's body that is waiting here? In his opinion, it was a good thing that such a thing could be hidden in this place. Apart from the tower guardian he encountered on the first floor, which was the colorful tiger, Zhang Heng was not interested in this thing at all. There seemed to be nothing else related to the Demon King. Therefore, he thought that if there were any special problems here, he could ask about the road construction immediately. However, he didn't expect that these Azuras would all shake their heads. We don't know where the demon god's shell is. We're just some Azuras trapped here. If you want to understand what's going on here, you'll have to open up this sea of flowers. This sea of flowers is a formation. After saying this, these Azuras acted as if this matter had nothing to do with them. Lin Yuan was a little surprised. He didn't expect these Azuras to be so direct. They didn't even say anything when Little Iron Egg tried to interrogate them. It was as if they really didn't know anything about this place. Lin Yuan sighed softly. Forget it. In that case, I won't get any clues even if I interrogate you. I won't interrogate you anymore. Of course, he knew that at this moment, he couldn't get anything out of these guys. Therefore, he directly said this and left. He walked directly to the depths of the sea of flowers. Since he had to flip the entire sea of flowers to see the secret hidden here, he might as well do it directly. When he thought of this, he didn't hesitate and stomped his foot hard. With him as the center, a wave spread from his foot to the surroundings. It was like an arc of a circle. At this moment, the surrounding sea of flowers surged, and at the same time, he saw one fruit after another appearing below. However, these azuras looked like children. Lin Yuan was a little puzzled. He didn't understand what was going on at all. He even felt that these things were a little strange. Why would there be children under this boundless sea of fire? On the other hand, the azuras shook their heads gently. This god-worshipping cult is really unscrupulous. They actually used humans as nourishment for these seed. After saying this, the azuras began to pull out the flowers and plants on the ground. Lin Yuan waved his hand to stop them. Don't touch these flowers and plants first. I can use these flowers and plants to dig out the guy hiding here. After saying this, a rainbow-colored light lingered from his hand and fell directly on the flowers. Then, the flowers seemed to have a life of their own as they pointed in a direction. Lin Yuan shook his head gently. It seems that you've hidden your strength well. But even so, don't you think that you're admitting defeat by not showing yourself? The azuras and Little Bruiser were stunned. They didn't react at all. What's going on? However, as soon as Lin Yuan finished speaking, a huge force surged out from his body. Then, a rusty armor appeared in front of Lin Yuan. It was an extremely simple armor, and the person wearing it was an old man who had been hammering for a long time. This old man seemed to be unable to even hold a sword. Chapter 1251. Lin Yuan narrowed his eyes and sized up the old man in front of him. However, he immediately frowned, because he felt that this guy seemed to have undergone some other changes at this moment. The moment the azuras next to him were about to rush up, Lin Yuan stopped them directly. Don't move. They are no match for him. If I really went up at noon, I might not have encountered any problems. Even I was a little surprised by his method of connecting the strap. Master, what exactly is this? Lin Yuan smiled faintly. I've encountered many interesting things here, but I didn't expect to encounter such an interesting thing. After he finished speaking, he squinted his eyes and walked forward. You must be that demon god's armor and weapon, said the demon god. He directly said to the old man, who looked like he was about to collapse. Little Iron Egg and the azuras were stunned. They didn't expect the old man in front of them to be the demon god's armor and weapon. Lin Yuan had seen many strange things. It wasn't the first time he saw an armor and weapon with a weapon spirit. Moreover, he could feel that this old man wasn't as simple as he thought. He could even take over a human's body to provide him with energy. Moreover, he could feel that the old man was desperately absorbing the energy from the old man's body. When he thought of this, his actions changed. He knew that the old man in front of him was definitely not ordinary. Moreover, he could clearly feel that the old man's surging energy wasn't something that an ordinary person could deal with. However, he didn't hesitate. He just sighed softly. Since you're here, you can either submit to me or be killed by me. Lin Yuan's words weren't sloppy at all. After he finished speaking, the old man nodded his head slightly. He didn't make any sound as he flipped his hand and struck out with his sword. I haven't fought with my master for many years. This time, I'll take it as my last contribution to the director. If I'm lucky enough to defeat you, sir, then please release my master no matter what. After he finished speaking, Lin Yuan just nodded slightly. He had long been prepared for this. At this moment, he didn't want to make any mistakes. Therefore, without any hesitation, He slowly walked towards the broken armor and the old man wearing it. The Azuras had indeed noticed the old man's actions. That's right, the sword drawing technique. One of the Shuras recognized the method used by the old man and was shocked. Of course, he knew that at this moment, no matter who it was, as long as they wanted to fight, they would have to use this method to fight the old man. The method that the old man was using at this moment was the strongest sword-drawing warrior that all warriors dreamed of. It wasn't just the Azuras. Even Tai Dan was captivated. What kind of idea is this? To think that it would have such an imposing manner right from the start. In fact, it even makes me feel somewhat cold all over. It's as though I've been drenched from head to toe by the sword chi. Little Tai Dan couldn't help but mutter to himself. Lin Yuan, on the other hand, looked indifferent. He took a step forward, completely ignoring the guys beside him. When he took a step forward, his aura rose. At this moment, the old man couldn't help but narrow his eyes. He knew that the opponent he was facing this time was definitely not simple. At the same time, he didn't know how many times he had fought this demon god and how many tyrannical opponents he had encountered. However, at this moment, he couldn't help but feel excited. He was indeed using weapons and armor, but at this moment, all of his strength had already enveloped the other party. He didn't use any other means. He was just using his aura to suppress the other party. At this moment, the old man still couldn't pull out his sword. In the eyes of the Azuras, this was the most tyrannical sword move, but they couldn't use it. Lin Yuan's strength was just that strong. He was simply approaching the old man step by step, but the old man couldn't pull out the sword in his hand. The reason he used the blade drawer on the sword was to be able to kill with one strike. However, he now realized that he had no control over the weapon in his hand at all. He even felt that this sure kill move was completely useless. When he thought of this, he almost couldn't control his hands, which were trembling slightly. The armor started to creak. As Lin Yuan's footsteps got closer and closer, the creaking became louder and louder. When he saw this, Lin Yuan just smiled faintly. The old man finally pulled out the sword in his hand by an inch. The old man still wasn't confident. Although he was controlled by the weapon and armor, he was also an extremely powerful warrior when he was alive. He didn't expect to meet such a strong opponent at all. He knew that his realm was too far away from his opponent. He didn't even know what to do. At this point, Lin Yuan had already stretched out his hand. In the next moment, he was about to launch an attack. The old man sighed softly. He finally pulled out all his swords, but he didn't immediately attack the blade drawer. It had already been broken. Seeing this change, the so-called Azuras were all stunned. They didn't react at all. What was going on? But at this moment, Lin Yuan discovered a problem. No matter what, there was a faint light lingering on the old man's body. There should be more than just the weapon and armor of the demon god lying in ambush here. If that was the case, it wouldn't be enough for the weapon and armor to control a human, absorb his power, and control him. Lin Yuan suddenly stretched out his hand and pointed. Something seemed to explode on the old man's body. At this moment, everything that would happen in the future was revealed. Lin Yuan saw a crystal-clear heart floating in the center of the armor. All of this was because of this heart. This was the heart of the demon god. Lin Yuan smiled slightly. Just as he was about to reach out to grab it, he found that the armor and weapon in front of him were already surrounded by a layer of red light. Chapter 1252. Lin Yuan could clearly see the so-called demon god that appeared in front of him. To be more precise, it was a set of armor and a weapon driven by an unfamiliar heart. As for the person inside, he had already been absorbed by the unfamiliar heart. Lin Yuan's expression changed slightly when he saw the layers of red light blossoming. It seems that every part of this demon god has been trained to a special level, Lin Feng said. As soon as he finished speaking, a few strands of special light flashed. Seeing this scene, Tai Danner's expression tightened slightly. He wanted to step forward and block in front of Lin Yuan. He knew that the special light was the demon god's attack, so he didn't dare to let his guard down. Seeing this kind of phone call, Lin Yuan gently waved his hand to signal her not to come over. You don't have to come over. I'll take it myself. After he finished speaking, he didn't hesitate at all. He stretched out his hand and grabbed the weapons in front of him. Clang! A crisp sound rang out. Lin Yuan's hand finally grasped the long sword, and he directly held the weapon tightly. Although you used to be an unfamiliar part, you're not anymore. You're facing me. If you continue to persist in going about things the wrong way, I'll kill you without hesitation. Lin Yuan's words weren't unreasonable. He did have the strength to do so. However, he didn't want to do so because in his opinion, if he could subdue a complete deity warden, it would naturally be an extremely wonderful thing for him. However, he didn't expect this guy's reaction to be different from what he imagined. The guy in front of him seemed to have gone crazy at this moment. He directly bumped into him. At this moment, the armor seemed to have displayed an unparalleled power. Lin Yuan's expression changed slightly. Naturally, he knew that at this moment, he needed to collect all of the demon god's organs in order to awaken the demon god. However, he was just curious about the demon god. If he wanted to be completely attracted to it, it would have to be at the level of the third demon king. He could sense that the demon god that appeared at this very moment should only be at the level of 2 monster kings. Therefore, he had already made a decision in his heart. He was considering whether he should directly take this demon god for his own use. As for Tai Danner, he already had his own guards, the Sky Martial Azuras. They were absolutely loyal to Tai Danner, a natural Azura. Therefore, they could not abandon this body. After Lin Yuan finished speaking, he released a powerful force from the mountain. He wanted to use this force to suppress the other party, so that the other party could feel his strength. At least this way, the other party would not be able to resist. But what he didn't expect was that this guy wasn't like before at all. Or rather, this demon god's heart already had some rebellious thoughts, and he didn't intend to continue like this. If you want to subdue me, you'll have to see if you have the strength to do so. After saying this, the long sword began to shatter into pieces. Seeing this scene, Lin Yuan frowned slightly. Naturally, he could see that this guy was prepared to fight to the death with him. But at this moment, before Lin Yuan could do anything, the Sky Martial Azura beside him rushed out. Form the Sky Martial Array. As soon as he finished speaking, an extremely violent force began to spread from the bodies of these people. This was not a special kind of power. Instead, it was like a shackle that controlled the heart of the demon god in front of them. Master, although this guy seems to be using the weapon spirits of these weapons, it's just a disguise. Because the most important thing is this demon god's heart. It's the source of everything. As long as you can subdue this heart, you can control the current situation. Lin Yuan didn't expect these Sky Martial Azuras to have such an ability. Then, he realized what was going on. Because the Tianwu Shura had been stationed here, they must be very familiar with this demon god's heart. If they had a way to control it, it was only natural that this guy would be able to do it. When he thought of this, Lin Yuan smiled. Alright, since that's the case, I'll use force to break the technique. When he said this, a rainbow-colored light appeared in his hand. Then, he directly grabbed the heart. At this moment, the sword had already shattered. But at this moment, the armor revealed some of its formation. Streaks of light shone from the armor. However, these streaks of light were blocking Lin Yuan's attack. Seeing this change, Lin Yuan sneered and reached in directly. Of course, he knew that in this situation, he had no other way to solve the current trouble. At this moment, he had already lost his patience. He didn't want to wait any longer. He wanted to know what was going to happen. Seeing this change, Lin Yuan's expression became somewhat impatient. However, compared to Lin Yuan's methods, the armor's defense was really not enough. Not only was it not enough, at this moment, there was almost no way to make this guy in front of him actually reach this heart. This was the consciousness of the demon god. What demon god? Although his body was torn apart and scattered on every floor of the pagoda, he wasn't unconscious. In other words, he wasn't completely defenseless in his current state. However, when Lin Yuan stretched out his hand, he realized that all his hopes seemed to have been cut off. At this moment, he didn't hesitate at all. At this moment, all his expressions began to distort. In fact, Lin Yuan's performance at this moment could be said to be the proof. Because at this moment, his method actually broke the light and even shattered the armor. Then, he grabbed the heart. "I'd like to see how you can escape from my hands." After saying this, he finally stopped. Then, as the heart entered his hand, the sea of flowers disappeared without a trace. It was as if nothing had happened. Chapter 1253. When Lin Yuan turned his head again, he found that there was another path in front of him. It was a path that led to the next floor. This was another floor of the pagoda. Lin Yuan understood that if he wanted to collect all the demon gods' bodies, he had to go through the floors one by one. Therefore, he didn't hesitate and stepped forward. Little Iron Egg, who was behind them, was indeed hesitant. He could already see for himself just how powerful his master was. At the same time, he could clearly feel that if he didn't have the same strength as his master, he would only be a burden if he went up for a meal. Lin Yuan turned his head and found that Little Iron Egg wasn't following him, so he turned around. "Aren't you going to follow me up and take a look?" Lin Yuan's voice was cold. He naturally knew that although this kid was a destined Azura, there were some things that couldn't be changed. For example, this kid didn't want to go up any further. However, the heavenly dance Azuras beside him also stepped forward at this moment. "Lord Supreme, please don't go up any further. If you go any further, you might face more than a simple battle." After he finished speaking, Lin Yuan just smiled. He already knew why Little Iron Egg changed his mind and didn't want to go any further. "Little Iron Egg, do you know where your weakness is? Because you don't dare to take this step, your advancement will probably stop here. If you really want to stop here, then I won't force you. In any case, our fate as master and disciple ends here." Lin Yuan didn't need a weakling by his side. He also didn't want to find a weakling disciple who didn't even have the courage to challenge the pagoda. When he finished speaking, Little Iron Egg's expression suddenly hardened. "Master, it's not that I don't want to go any further, but I'm afraid that my appearance will cause you some unnecessary trouble. After all, with your strength, if you want to wear it, it won't be afraid. But if you bring me along, I'm afraid." Although he didn't finish his sentence, Lin Yuan understood the meaning behind it. This guy was simply thinking about dragging him down. Lin Yuan smiled faintly. "This is not something you should be thinking about. What you should be thinking about is how to increase your own strength and become a great help to me." He knew that if he wanted to turn this desolate city into a fertile land, he needed people who could use it. Now, the little guy in front of him was a useful person, and he was also a disciple that he thought highly of. However, if he was really controlled by these secular ideas, then he would not be able to improve. Lin Yuan didn't want such a moldable talent to stop here, so he said those words. Little Iron Egg's expression suddenly became unusually solemn as he spoke. "Since Master has said so, then no matter what, I will use my last bit of strength to serve Master." As he said this, he took the first step up the stairs without hesitation. Lin Yuan only smiled faintly. He naturally knew what this kid was thinking, but in his opinion, even if this kid had other ideas, he must restrain them at this moment. What he needed was not only this little iron egg, but also a person. He also needed other powerful helpers. Only then could he revive this ghost town. Lin Yuan already had a plan in his mind, so he walked step by step on this boundless ancient road. When he encountered this iron tower, he knew that this place was definitely not simple. At least, it wasn't like what he saw. This place was very likely a branch of the worshipping god Pope. Moreover, the reason why these people from the bad god religion set up this place so far away was to make it easier for them to control their fighting style. It felt like a village surrounding a city. After Lin Yuan climbed the stairs again, the scenery in front of him suddenly changed. His expression slightly changed because he found that what appeared in front of him was not the sea of flowers from before, but an ocean. It was a quiet and peaceful ocean, and countless rays of warm sunlight shone on the seaside. Lin Yuan felt relaxed and happy. Even if he knew that the scenery in front of him was fake, he didn't want to say it out loud. At least in his opinion, everything in front of him was enough to confirm that this place was definitely more dangerous than the previous floor. When it came to creating an illusion, the more realistic it was, the more powerful the creator was. Therefore, he was certain that the protector of this floor was many times stronger than the sky martial Shura from before. This was because when he reached out to touch the water, he could even feel its warmth. This change more or less surprised him. To be able to purchase such a large scene, perhaps even the strength of the 3 demon emperors wouldn't be enough. He directly took a step forward. At this moment, Little Iron Egg was a little dazed. "Master, what should we do in this boundless ocean?" As soon as he finished his sentence, Lin Yuan gently nodded. "Actually, we don't need any other methods. As long as we can use our own methods to cross over, it will be fine." Then, a 7-colored halo appeared on Lin Yuan's hand, and it drilled under his feet. He controlled the 7-colored light and floated above the sea. When Little Bruiser saw this, he immediately became fascinated. "Master, what method is this? Can you teach me?" Although Little Iron Egg was a natural Azura, he was still a child. It was inevitable that he would feel like a child. Lin Yuan smiled and stretched out his hand. Another 7-colored halo floated under his feet. "Give it a try. Don't fall into the sea. I'm not sure if there's any danger in there." When he finished speaking, he had already steered the rainbow light forward. Little Iron Egg carefully tested it for a while before gradually getting the hang of it. As for those Iron Blood Azuras, they had already drilled into Little Iron Egg's body. They had souls and existed in form. Therefore, they could directly drill into Little Iron Egg's body at this moment. This was actually beneficial to both of them. Lin Yuan didn't care too much. However, the moment they entered the sea, the waves began to surge. Chapter 1254. Seeing this, Lin Yuan's expression changed slightly. He knew that there must be something else hidden here. The other demon gods were strange, so he wasn't in a hurry. Instead, he squinted his eyes and looked in front of him. "Little Iron Egg, stabilize your body. Don't be scared. This thing is just a way to deal with us in this situation." After Lin Yuan finished speaking, Little Iron Egg's body became even more unstable. He wasn't familiar with controlling the 7-colored cloud, so his movements became jerky at this moment. "Master, don't scare me." He was clearly not used to this method of walking on the waves on the sea. He even started to make mistakes again and again, almost falling into the sea. Lin Yuan just smiled. He knew that Little Iron Egg hadn't been tested enough. This situation was the perfect opportunity to test him. Therefore, he didn't hesitate at all. Gradually, at the moment of this change, Lin Yuan had already stretched out his hand and grabbed Little Iron Egg in front of him. "Control your emotions. Don't be scared by the scene in front of you. Otherwise, you won't be able to participate in the battle later. After saying this, little Iron Egg couldn't control his emotions anymore. Under such circumstances, it was already difficult for him to control his body. However, Lin Yuan's words made him lose his patience. Lin Yuan just shook his head when he saw this. However, the waves started to become more and more violent. It seemed that something under the water was desperately causing trouble for them and even wanted to overturn them. Lin Yuan didn't say anything. His eyes were fixed on the water. He knew that the thing hidden under the water was definitely not that simple. At least, in his opinion, it definitely wouldn't be easy to deal with it. The demon god's heart had already caused such a big commotion. Now, he could feel that no matter what happened at this moment, there should be traces to follow. However, all of a sudden, a tentacle stretched out. Lin Yuan frowned slightly. Why did this thing look so much like the special demon king he had fought before? It was the octopus demon king. He suddenly stretched out his hand and directly grabbed the tentacle. However, when he touched the tentacle suddenly sprayed out a kind of purple-red ink. Just by looking at its color, one could tell that it was highly toxic. However, Lin Yuan did use his own 7-colored light to form a light barrier, covering his hand and blocking the opponent's attack. Little Bruiser clenched his fists when he saw this. He knew from the very beginning that his appearance would bring trouble to his master, so he was able to remain calm. He wasn't too flustered and had even calmed down a bit. He didn't say a word as he stood on the 7-colored halo. Lin Yuan had indeed broken a tentacle. The moment he stretched out his hand, the tentacle of the octopus broke. It seemed that the octopus knew that it was no match for him. Lin Yuan clearly felt that these guys were cunning. If he really let them go on like this, he was afraid that he wouldn't be able to escape from here. When he thought of this, he didn't hesitate at all. This time, he was prepared to cover his whole body with the 7-colored light and plunge into the water. He wanted to see what was exerting pressure on him. However, the moment he covered his body with the 7-colored light, the waves directly slapped him like a golden wave. Not only him, but also Little Bruiser beside him. Lin Yuan also arranged a 7-colored light on Little Bruiser's body in the midst of the chaos. Only then did he know that this light could protect Little Bruiser's life. When he thought of this, he didn't hesitate at all. At this moment, he directly stepped out and dived into the sea. At this moment, he discovered that there were actually countless strange creatures under the water staring at him. He was also a little puzzled. He didn't react in time, right? What was going on? In his opinion, these underwater creatures shouldn't be so aggressive. However, when his gaze fell on the eyes of these underwater monsters, he knew that they must be controlled by the so-called demon god's body. This was because their eyes were flickering with a scarlet color. This scarlet color was the same as the color emitted by the demon god's heart. Seeing that he had already fallen into the encirclement, Lin Yuan was not nervous at all. He even felt that this so-called stranger was more or less a bit low. However, this method of controlling these sea creatures was really too low level. However, just as he was thinking about this, an extremely huge force suddenly enveloped Lin Yuan's body. Rather than saying that it was an enormous power, it would be more accurate to say that it was a massive shadow. The reaction was so huge that he didn't even have the intention to completely avoid it. He couldn't even avoid this shadow because this shadow was so huge that it had already covered a large area of the sea. At this moment, that guy suddenly opened his mouth, and a huge suction force directly appeared in the water. Even the water and Lin Yuan were sucked into the giant's mouth. Lin Yuan frowned slightly. With the protection of the colorful light, there was no problem at all. However, he didn't know what kind of creature he was in, but looking at the gorgeous internal organs and skin around him, he didn't know. He knew that this guy was at least a few dozen meters away. However, he suddenly had some special thought. Such a big thing, if he ate it, He was afraid that it would take a long time. However, he immediately erased this idea from his heart because the smell here was really not good. At this moment, at the moment when he was about to penetrate this guy's stomach, he found that there were shining gems one after another in this guy's stomach. These gems should be the essence of this thing's cultivation. Although Lin Yuan had no need for these things, and he didn't care about such things, Little Iron Egg really needed these things now. Lin Yuan didn't have any other thoughts at this time. He took a step forward and was ready to dig out a stone from this guy's body. However, when his hand touched this guy's internal organs, he found that something was wrong. Chapter 1255. Because the moment his hand touched this guy's body, it was as if there was a huge suction force sucking out the power in his body. It felt as if a needle had pierced into his body and extracted some blood. Lin Yuan's expression was a little ugly. He didn't expect that he would meet such a difficult guy and fail miserably at such an easy task. However, this gave him a special idea. Little Iron Egg was probably still lacking a set of armor. If he could kill this thing and use its body parts to make armor for Little Iron Egg, it wouldn't be a bad idea. Lin Yuan was angry when he thought of this. He tried to use the colorful light in his body to cut the monster's internal organs. However, he didn't expect the monster's internal organs to be so tough. Even he couldn't cut them open. The most important thing is that at this moment, without the slightest sign, this guy, that is, the body of this behemoth, actually began to twist, and then his internal organs also wriggled, as if to directly crush Lin Yuan. This made him feel a little passive, because at this moment, all his thoughts had already landed on this guy. After checking and understanding the situation, he should have a 90% chance of succeeding. However, he didn't expect to make such a mistake. Lin Yuan gently held his cheek with one hand. He was thinking about what to do next. He could clearly feel the strength of the monster's internal organs. He could even clearly feel that the monster was shrinking step by step, as if it was going to crush him. Lin Yuan suddenly took out the demon god's heart. This thing was so powerful. It must have something to do with the stranger's restaurant. However, the moment he took out the demon god's heart, the surrounding stones all rushed toward the heart in his hand. There was no need to dig them out. It was as if they belonged to the heart. Lin Yuan's expression froze. What's going on? Wait. He suddenly realized a problem. This seemed to be the demon god's blood. When the blood returned to the heart, it made the strange heart stronger. Lin Yuan didn't expect that taking out the strange heart would have such a benefit. However, he couldn't care less now. Since the strange heart worked, and the monster had this type of blood, he didn't hesitate to gather all of them together. At least this was of some use to him. Thinking of this, Lin Yuan, you will directly start to swim in the body of this giant. Of course, he knew that if he wasn't careful at this moment, he might not encounter any danger, but he would miss out on the things inside. He didn't want to get his hands on an incomplete demon god. He couldn't afford to lose even a little bit. Therefore, at this moment, he didn't have the slightest bit of hesitation. He almost went to every corner of this guy. Although this guy would absorb his power, after a while, he would use the power of this demon god's heart on himself. This was a balance. The monster would absorb his power, and the strange heart would absorb the monster's power. In the end, the heart would send the power to him. This was equivalent to a cycle. It was just a waste of one more process. Lin Yuan didn't think that the demon god's heart was the only thing in this place. Looking at the state of the previous layer, there should be some special secrets hidden in this place. For example, one of the demon god's bodies. However, he didn't know where the demon god's body was. He didn't know which part of the strange body was sealed in this layer. Therefore, it was no different from looking for a needle in a haystack. But just as he was deep in thought, he suddenly felt a clear impact coming from outside. Lin Yuan was a little puzzled. Logically speaking, in this place, in such a deep sea, such a behemoth should not be attacked. But why was there something constantly attacking him, and why was it that this huge monster was reaching out? Suddenly, he thought of something. It was very likely to be Little Iron Egg. Although this guy had always been a little timid, he was always able to erupt with indescribable power at critical moments. Lin Yuan finally didn't want to hold back anymore. He knew that if he let Little Iron Egg continue to hit him, this kid wouldn't be able to withstand the squeezing power of the monster's internal organs, even if he had the protection of his rainbow energy. If this little disciple of his really died, the gains wouldn't make up for the losses. Without any hesitation, he rushed out of the room. At this moment, he didn't hold back anymore. He punched the monster's inner skin from the inside. He didn't hesitate anymore. He was afraid that something would happen to his little disciple. If that happened, it would be difficult to deal with. Moreover, he only used his physical strength this time. He didn't borrow any other power. Therefore, even if the monster wanted to absorb the energy in his body, it wouldn't be able to do so. Seeing that it was being attacked from two sides, the monster finally couldn't hold back anymore. Then, a stream of stinky liquid gushed out of its body. Lin Yuan originally wanted to smash the monster into pieces with his punches. However, he didn't expect that the monster would be so disgusting as to expel the stinky and sour digestive liquid. He didn't hesitate anymore. This time, he directly punched the monster's skin with the rainbow light. Then, he exerted his strength. In an instant, the monster's skin and flesh exploded. Then, a stream of blood gushed out of the monster's body. The seawater outside also washed away its internal organs at this moment. Lin Yuan narrowed his eyes and slowly walked out of the monster's body step by step. Outside was Little Iron Egg. However, the rainbow light on his body had become extremely dim, as if it was about to disappear. Lin Yuan smiled dotingly. "Silly boy, how can you be a match for him?" The moment he saw Lin Yuan, Little Iron Egg's face lit up with surprise. "Master, you're really here." After saying this, he couldn't hold back his emotions anymore. He directly pounced on Lin Yuan. At this moment, Lin Yuan just waved his hand gently. A light green light enveloped Little Iron Egg's body. Chapter 1256. The moment he saw Lin Yuan, a look of surprise appeared on Little Iron Egg's face. "Master, you're really here." After saying this, he couldn't hold back his emotions and directly rushed towards Lin Yuan. At this moment, Lin Yuan just waved his hand gently, and a light green light directly enveloped Little Iron Egg's body. "No matter what you want to say now, you can swallow it back." This sentence made Little Iron Egg feel strange. He directly rushed in to save him without caring about his own safety. Why was his master treating him so coldly now? Little Iron Egg didn't seem to understand what was going on at all. Seeing this scene, Lin Yuan knew that Little Iron Egg had misunderstood. Because he knew that Little Iron Egg was with him, the two of them didn't have the leisure to care about love at all. There were many huge sea creatures around them. At this moment, Lin Yuan already knew that this underwater world was unusual. But he didn't expect Little Iron Egg to misunderstand him at this time. At this moment, a violent current directly swept towards the two of them. Lin Yuan directly pulled Little Iron Egg and dodged. Then he said indifferently, "Now is not the time to talk about this. There are still some special things here that we haven't dealt with yet." When he finished speaking, he had already rushed to the side. There were a few fishes that had grown human arms and bodies. These guys looked very powerful, but for some reason, Lin Yuan felt that they had a very similar aura to the devil god from before. It was as if these things were born from the devil god. However, Lin Yuan still frowned. He knew that the matter of the eye was definitely not that simple, but at this moment, He was already prepared. His movements began to become swift and fierce, and the surrounding special fish began to attack them on their own accord. Lin Yuan frowned. Although these guys' attack power wasn't strong, their attacks were extremely troublesome. Moreover, every attack could create a whirlpool underwater. Lin Yuan knew that the whirlpool was their attack method. They were doing this to disrupt his attack method. It was also to distract his attention. Little Iron Egg, listen to me. These guys are not the ones who are mainly attacking us. There are other powerful creatures around us. Lin Yuan didn't hesitate. After saying this, he was about to do something else. But he didn't know when he was trapped in a cage made of water. Lin Yuan didn't seem to be able to react. They didn't expect these underwater creatures to have such intelligence. In such a situation, they had actually unleashed their most powerful strength. Furthermore, they had used a group attack to trap him here. Not only him, but even Little Bruiser had not been able to escape the calamity. Seeing this scene, Lin Yuan's eyes slightly narrowed slightly. He could clearly see that these guys in front of him weren't just using this special method to attack, they were using the power of the sea. Lin Yuan frowned slightly. He naturally knew that in this situation, no matter what he did, there was no way to escape from here. The only thing he could do was to use force to break through. At that moment, waves after waves of water surged towards him. Little Iron Egg now understood why his master had told him not to speak. In this kind of crisis, speaking would only distract him. Therefore, Lin Yuan knew that they were doing this for his own good. When he thought of this, he couldn't speak. He could only stand there silently. Alright, I didn't expect that you guys would actually have such a method. However, if you think that this is enough to deal with me, you're underestimating me too much. After he finished speaking, he took a step forward without any hesitation. Right at this moment, the cage-like stream of water that had been condensed to the side had already been confined to the ground. It seemed like it wanted to firmly trap him there. Every movement he made would cause the water around him to resist. The resistance was very clear and powerful. Lin Yuan had never thought that he would encounter such a situation. However, he quickly calmed down and squinted his eyes as he looked at everything before him. Nobody responded to him, because all the creatures in the water were looking at him with extreme vigilance. In their eyes, this human was their mortal enemy. And the behemoth that should have been lurking here has not appeared yet. At least, Lin Yuan felt that this guy was more powerful than the other behemoths. He did not know how many times. Furthermore, he could sense that this creature had been waiting for him all this time. It clearly had ulterior motives. Lin Yuan's eyes started to look around. He knew that there was definitely something special in this place. However, this creature had yet to appear, which made him more or less puzzled. However, he immediately became vigilant because he felt that the changes in the water were becoming more obvious. The waves and vibrations seemed like something was about to come out from a certain direction. Little Iron Egg, who was watching from the side, was also a little nervous. Master, do you want me to release the Sky Dance Azuras and have a bloody battle with them? Lin Yuan shook his head. Although these creatures looked extremely ferocious, they couldn't do much in the water. Moreover, their methods weren't used underwater. Lin Yuan narrowed his eyes. He had already come up with a countermeasure, but he was prepared to go deeper. He wanted this creature to come out by itself. Seeing this change, Lin Yuan's hand didn't even emit a bit of light. It was as if he didn't care about his surroundings at all. At that moment, a tall tortoise or a stone tablet slowly crawled over from not far away. The tortoise's movements seemed to be very slow, but with every step it took, its figure would leave behind afterimages. This thing should be the real deal. Lin Yuan smiled slightly. He had already seen the tortoise carrying the stone tablet. Chapter 1257. Lin Yuan wasn't nervous when he saw the old man, and he even had a smile on his face. However, Little Iron Egg wasn't as calm as Wang Yao. In his opinion, the behemoth-like old man in front of him was so powerful that it was terrifying. The old man's aura wasn't something that he could contend with. He even felt like he was just a little bug crawling under the other party's feet. Lin Yuan didn't have much to do, so he just quietly watched the old man approach him. He also absorbed all the pressure from the wall of water beside him. Finally, the old turtle said, "Do you think you can fight against us in a place like this? In the water, us water races are invincible." When the old turtle said this, he suddenly spat out a mouthful of water. The water was like a sharp sword, rushing towards Lin Yuan and Little Iron Egg. Seeing this, Little Iron Egg snorted and clenched his fist. He took a step forward and punched out. The water flow seemed to be unable to withstand his punch and had already begun to appear. The depression had even formed a vacuum at this moment. However, Little Iron Egg was still too weak. At least, he was far from being able to compete with the behemoth in front of him. Lin Yuan directly fell in front of Little Iron Egg. Finally, the water collided with Lin Yuan's power. At this moment, Lin Yuan didn't hesitate at all. He directly took a step forward. "Old Wang, right? Do you really think that you're invincible when you're down there? I can tell you clearly that no matter what you think, you can't realize it at this moment, even if you think that you are an aquatic race." After Lin Yuan finished speaking, he fiercely clenched his fist. Then, outside the wall of water, a 7-colored light began to bloom. He had already prepared a backup plan. At this moment, he didn't hesitate at all and directly activated his hidden means. At this moment, the old turtle was also shocked. He didn't expect the human in front of him to be so terrifying, and it wasn't over yet. Lin Yuan just slammed the ground, and then a scorching heat rose up, and the space they were in instantly turned into a vacuum. Or rather, all the water was sucked away. The old turtle was also stunned for a moment. He didn't know how many years it had been since he went ashore. At this moment, he seemed to feel a little flustered as the water flow left him. Lin Yuan narrowed his eyes and smiled slightly. Without any hesitation, he stepped out of the world and punched the old turtle's shell fiercely. He could see that there must be something special about the 10 times, but he didn't want to think about it now. He just wanted to do his best to deal with this old turtle in front of him. After all, from his point of view, although it seemed like he was the one who was attacked and trapped, he knew that this guy's strongest point was his defense. Attacking wasn't his forte, and if he wanted to get through this, he had to defeat this guy. Moreover, he could also see that this guy in front of him should have the strength of 2 demon kings. Lin Yuan had just punched out, and the old turtle narrowed his eyes in an instant. Then, Lin Yuan clearly saw layers of water flow begin to cover this guy's body, as if forming a layer of armor for him. Lin Yuan's attack was like a clay ox entering the sea. Seeing this change, Little Iron Egg's expression changed, because he could see that his master's current attack method didn't seem to be enough to destroy this guy in front of him. What could he do? He didn't have the strength to deal with this guy in front of him at all. If he really acted hastily, he was afraid that he would cause trouble for his master. Just as he was hesitating, Lin Yuan suddenly stretched out his hand and pointed at the stone tablet. "Old turtle, I know that this 10 times is your lifeblood, and it's where the array formation is. If you still want to fight to the death with us, I will not hesitate to shatter this stone tablet of yours. At that time, everything here will be destroyed, and even you will disappear." Given Lin Yuan's experience, how could he not know that this guy in front of him must have some special problems? These problems appeared on the stone tablet. He also clearly felt that the demon god's heart in his hand had given him a hint at this moment. There must be another body of the demon god in this old turtle's body. Therefore, it was not convenient for him to directly kill this old turtle in front of him. He wanted to dig out the truth of this old turtle bit by bit. After all, this guy was not as simple as the armor and weapons he had seen before. He was just a weapon spirit, and he had been controlled by the demon god's heart. The old turtle in front of him was obviously a demon king. Therefore, he wanted to change to other methods and means, at least it wouldn't take so much effort. However, just as he was thinking about this, the old turtle snorted coldly. If you want to say that, then I have to thank you because I don't want to carry this equipment for the rest of my life. I don't know how many unfair things I've encountered because of this equipment. If you can, why don't you help me? It was obvious from what this guy said and did at this moment that he was messing with Lin Yuan's mentality. Seeing this scene, he just said softly, "In that case, I'll help you dissect it." When Lin Yuan finished speaking, he had already taken a step forward, because he could feel that the old tortoise that appeared in front of him at this moment was ready to attack. Suddenly, waves began to surge in front of him. The mist had long disappeared, and at this moment, Lin Yuan found that this guy could actually use the water to penetrate the vacuum defense he had set up and directly rush in. Lin Yuan's expression changed slightly. Good, good, good. I didn't expect you to have such a method. In that case, I won't stand on ceremony. After saying this, a brilliant sword appeared in his hand. At this moment, he directly held this sword in his hand and slashed the old turtle's shell in front of him, creating sparks. It was as if he had gone mad as he continued to attack without stopping. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.